Chapter 31-35. Ji Bowen's roars echoed in the air. Lin Sun's real body had already charged forward, his bloodshot eyes filled with cold and ruthless killing intent. In an instant, the enraged Ji Bowen felt as if he had fallen into an icy cavern. He sensed great danger, and Lin Sun's killing intent was so strong that it almost drowned his mind. At that moment, a terrifying presence descended, and the night was torn apart. In that instant, an indescribable pressure enveloped the world, causing the air to fall silent. Even faster than that terrifying presence was a palm print that had formed out of thin air. It looked as if it had been polished from clear glass, and it blocked in front of Ji Bowen before slamming towards Lin Sun. Boom! That palm print seethed with the blazing power of rules. It was practically the hand of the heavens, and the aura it released was so strong that it far surpassed the realm of transcending rules. However, Lin Sun did not dodge. Billions of sword auras suddenly surged out of his body and turned into a formation that clashed head-on with the glass-like palm print. Rumble! The palm and sword collided, and the area suddenly collapsed into a violent turbulence of power. The glass-like palm print burst into pieces, and Lin Sun's sword formation also dissipated. Even though he was not injured, his charging figure was still blocked for an instant, allowing Ji Bowen to take the chance to escape with his life. Lin Sun, what a man! It's only been a few years, but he has already advanced from the eternal longevity realm to the great circle of rules, the eternal realm. An awe-inspiring voice filled with shock rang out. Soon after, a tall and imposing figure appeared out of thin air. He was dressed in feathered robes and had the air of an immortal. He looked like a youth, but when his eyes opened and closed, they gave off an ancient air. Ji Guiling, an early-stage creation realm existence of the Ji clan. When he appeared, Ji Bowen instantly felt as if he had found a backer. He hissed, "Progenitor, this fiend killed Chongyun and Chongshan. Please take action and capture him. Don't worry, he won't be able to escape." A hint of killing intent appeared between Ji Guiling's brows. "What I don't understand is why Brother Guasian hasn't returned from the eternal true world." Ji Guasian was one of the creation realm existences of the Ji clan. He had long since gone to the eternal true world to deal with Lin Sun, but now Ji Guasian had not returned and Lin Sun had come. Most importantly, Ji Guasian was Ji Guiling's older brother. "You mean him?" Lin Sun raised his hand and grasped Ji Guasian's spirit, which was imprisoned and dying. His bloodshot eyes flashed with terrifying coldness. The faces of Ji Guiling and Ji Bowen changed at the same time. They couldn't believe that Ji Guasian, who was at the middle stage of creation realm, could be captured by Lin Sun. "Release my clan brother, quickly! Otherwise, you'll die for sure today." Ji Guiling was enraged. His face was gloomy as he berated sternly. Lin Sun put away Ji Guasian's spirit and said indifferently, "Do you think I'm afraid of such a threat?" His murderous intent became even more terrifying, like a turbulent ocean. "But don't worry, I won't kill Ji Guasian just like that. I'll let you taste what it feels like to be threatened." As he spoke, Lin Sun stepped forward. Boom! The heavens shook and the earth trembled. A beam of sword chi that resembled the 9 heavens Milky Way swept out. It was surrounded by a cryptic power of laws as it slashed towards Ji Guiling. Meanwhile, his Greenwood Taoist physique used the power of the Grand Primordium Order to launch a pincer attack with his main body. "You are courting death." Ji Guiling was enraged. He stretched out his hand and grabbed at the air. Clang! One made by the divine, the golden saber formed by order appeared in his hand, and he slashed out furiously. Golden saber chi whistled through the air, emitting a world-shaking murderous aura. That was the power of the creation realm. Using the divine level order as a weapon, the might-released shot through the sky. A great battle broke out. Ji Guiling was furious and used his full strength. But Lin Sun was angrier than him, and he didn't show any mercy when he attacked. Rumble! The world turned upside down, and the sun and moon lost their light. Last time in the eternal true world, when Lin Sun fought against Ji Guizhen, who was in the middle stage of the creation realm, with just his own strength, Lin Sun had managed to defeat him. Not to mention that he was now using the power of his main body and the Greenwood Taoist body. In a moment, Ji Guiling was injured and coughed up blood. He was suppressed by Lin Sun's unparalleled ferocity. Ji Bowen's eyes almost popped out of their sockets, and he felt a chill run down his spine. Even if he racked his brains, he wouldn't be able to imagine how Lin Sun, an expert in the great perfection of the rules transcendent state, could be so heaven-defying, surpassing a major realm and suppressing a creation realm cultivator. Who would dare to believe this? This bastard is too arrogant. Let's attack together. But suddenly 2 figures rang out. One was as heavy as iron, while the other was hoarse and ethereal. Their voices were still echoing when 2 godlike figures appeared out of nowhere and charged into the battlefield. One was an old man in a purple robe, with a jade belt and a crown on his head. He had a delicate appearance, and the power of the rules around his body had transformed into the silvery illusion of a world. Ji Chaoyin, a late-stage creation realm cultivator. She was also the most ancient of the 4 creation realm cultivators of the Ji clan, and she had the most terrifying combat power. One was a beautiful woman dressed in a colorful dress. Her face was as calm as water, and she was as cold as ice. Tens of thousands of rays of green sword chi condensed in front of her, and the green light surged and covered the sky. Ji Haiwan, a mid-stage creation realm cultivator, and the only woman among the 4 creation realm cultivators of the Ji clan. As soon as the 2 appeared, they charged into the battlefield. One of them used peerless divine abilities and controlled the rules of wind, thunder, earth, and fire with boundless divine power. The other's sword intent was monstrous, and the green light was like a waterfall, wild and violent, like a peerless sword god on the eternal path. The addition of the 2 immediately changed the situation. Lin Sun and Greenwood Taoist physique's attacks were blocked, and they were surrounded. Other than that, there were also 8 transcending rules realm cultivators. They stood guard in all directions and sealed off all paths of retreat. Every single one of them had the power to throw the heavens into chaos. Seeing this, the patriarch Ji Bowen felt relieved. Right now, all the eternal realm cultivators of the Ji clan had come out in full force. Under such circumstances, there was no need to worry about not being able to kill Lin Sun. Ancestors, as long as we capture and kill this bastard, the fate of our clan will definitely change tonight. Ji Bowen shouted, and his voice shook the sky. The battle erupted completely. Divine radiance and the glow of the Tao raged like tidewater, and it shook the clouds to the point of collapsing while the sky cracked apart. Rumbling and rumbling resounded throughout Phoenix Perch Mountain while the heavens and the earth shook. If it wasn't for the fact that the Ji clan was covered with more than one divine order, just the torrent of energy alone would cause the world of gods to backfire, and the billions of living beings in the world would definitely be harmed. Kill! 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 The 3 creation realm cultivators, Ji Guiling, Ji Chaoyin, and Ji Haiwan, were each more powerful than the last. Their bodies were filled with murderous intent, and they each unleashed their most powerful attacks. Lin Sun also suffered a great impact, and he felt the pressure that assaulted his face. But he didn't retreat. His anger and hatred caused his fighting spirit and killing intent to boil and burn. His entire body was covered in Taoist light, and sometimes it was like an abyss that could swallow the heavens, and sometimes it was like a furnace that could suppress the world. Rise. With a thought in Lin Sun's mind, the crimson fire, platinum, and yellow earth Taoist bodies whistled out, and they fought alongside Lin Sun and the Greenwood Taoist body. The abyssal sword cauldron was activated by Lin Sun as well, and each of the 4 Taoist bodies wielded a clan-guarding weapon with unfathomable might. For example, the Taihao clan's clan-guarding treasure, the Myriad God Spear, the Ju clan's Furnace of Chaos, the One clan's Primal Chaos Seal, the Minamoto clan's Azurite Heavenly Sword, and so on. Clan-guarding treasures like these were far more powerful than ordinary eternal Taoist weapons, and every single one of them had a glorious past and inspiring accomplishments in battle. If it wasn't for that, Lin Sun wouldn't have kept them in his collection. But now, all of these eternal Taoist weapons were put to use. However, even under such circumstances, he was only able to stand on equal footing with the three creation stage existences. It was an intense confrontation. It was impossible to defeat them in a short period of time. The reason was Ji Chaoyin. She was a late-stage creation realm cultivator, and the power she possessed was far beyond that of Ji Haowen and Ji Guiling. Just the attack against Ji Chaoyin had restrained the power of Lin Sun and his two Taoist bodies. One could imagine how abnormal the combat power of a late-stage creation realm cultivator was. However, Lin Sun didn't care about this at all. He needed to vent the anger and hatred in his chest. Even when he swept through the 12 eternal gods in the 9th heaven, Lin Sun had never been as angry as he was today. When he thought of Zhao Jingxuan's worried and hesitant eyes, and the bloody scenes of Lin Fan and Su Bai being brutally tortured, his heart trembled. Kill. At this moment, Lin Sun was no different from a madman. He released all of his power, unleashing it to the extreme and unleashing it like never before. Rumble, the world seemed to have turned into chaos and completely collapsed. The torrent of the great wave of destruction surged and swept, showing a scene of doomsday. It was shocking. How can this boy be so strong? Looking at all the civilizations in the ruins of creation, how can there be such an eternal realm cultivator? How is this possible? The expressions of Ji Bowen and the other existences in the exceeding law realm became dull. They originally thought that with the three creation realm ancestors taking action, it would be easy to capture Lin Sun. But who would have thought that Lin Sun would be fighting the three creation realm ancestors head-on? This completely subverted their imagination and expectations. They were all stunned. They didn't know how many years they had lived, but this was the first time they had seen such a scene. They were not the only ones. Ji Chaoyin, Ji Haifan, and Ji Guiling, who were fighting fiercely with Lin Sun, all revealed looks of shock and confusion. It should be known that with the power of the creation realm, they could easily suppress and kill eternal realm figures in the exceeding law realm. But at this moment, it didn't work in front of Lin Sun. This was undoubtedly too unbelievable. What was even more difficult for them to accept was that as the battle continued, Lin Sun's power had been growing bit by bit, and they began to feel oppressed. If this scene was seen by other eternal realm cultivators in the world, who would dare to believe it? We can't hesitate any longer. Use your trump card, quickly. In the end, Ji Chaoyin couldn't hold back anymore and shouted, the killing intent in his eyes surging wildly. Lin Sun's heaven-defying combat power, which could not be measured by common sense, had made him feel a serious threat. Chapter 31-36. Just as Ji Chaoyin's voice faded away, Ji Guiling and Ji Haiwen displayed their trump cards in unison. Myriad flow! Ji Guiling shouted. The void suddenly split open, and the vast power of rules surged out. It was like the water of the 9th heaven had burst a dam, and it was about to drown the world. The vast power of rules covered the heavens and the earth. Compared to it, everything else seemed extremely small and powerless. At a speed visible to the naked eye, Ji Guiling's aura suddenly weakened after he executed this attack, and his face turned pale. Obviously, such an attack consumed a great deal of energy even for a creation realm existence like him. Mountains and rivers together, the bright moon shines alone. At the same time, a strand of a cold and indistinct voice resounded out. Ji Haowen gestured with his white hand, and it seemed as if a myriad of mountains and rivers lay across the world. A bright and clear moon alone illuminated the world, and it emanated chilly radiance that was hazy and dreamlike. The mountains and rivers were all formed from mysterious rules, especially the bright moon. It was like the incarnation of all the Tao in the world, and it was filled with a supreme charm that illuminated the ages. Such a scene was so beautiful that it made one's heart tremble, and it was also unimaginably terrifying. Even looking at it from afar, Ji Bowen and the others who had exceeded the realm of rules felt a chill in their hearts, and they felt suffocated and helpless. Lin Sun's bloodshot eyes shone with a crazy luster. The next moment, the Gate of Exile suddenly appeared, covering the world. The huge gate that covered an area of tens of thousands of meters was like a bloody mouth that could swallow the sky. The Gate of Exile, a forbidden magic, was released by Lin Sun, who had reached the perfection of the realm of rules. Its power was already different from before. Boom! The mighty torrent of laws released by Ji Guiling was extremely terrifying, but at this moment, it was like 10,000 streams returning to the sea, completely swallowed by the door of exile. How is this possible? Ji Guiling shouted. His brows were full of shock. This was his trump card, and it consumed more than half of his cultivation. At the same time, Ji Haiwen also let out a cry of disbelief. The world of mountains, rivers, and moons was violently crushed like a piece of paper, vanishing into the door of exile. The terrifying power of the laws contained within it seemed so weak. Boom! Heaven and earth rumbled. The door of exile moved horizontally, simply swallowing everything. What supreme divine abilities! What power of laws! Everything was crushed and swallowed like a whirlwind. Such a scene shocked Ji Bowen and the others to the point their scalps went numb, and their eyeballs almost fell out. Lin Sun's 4 Taoist bodies had already been mobilized. Green wood and red fire Taoist bodies worked together to deal with Ji Guiling, while white gold and yellow earth Taoist bodies worked together to deal with Ji Han. On the other hand, Lin Sun's main body was doing his best to restrain Ji Chaoyin's attack. The battle was getting more and more terrifying. In the blink of an eye, Ji Guiling's figure was suppressed by green wood and the scarlet flame Taoist body. He had nowhere to run and nowhere to hide. He was directly swallowed by the door of exile. No! Ji Guiling roared angrily, his eyes about to split open. He struggled madly, but to no avail. His figure quickly disappeared into the depths of the door of exile. An early stage creator was exiled just like that, courting death. Ji Chaoyin was enraged. Her eyes were cold and terrifying. She used her trump card. An incomparably dazzling sword light appeared between her fingers and slashed out angrily. The dangerous aura caused Lin Sun's main body to shiver, but he did not retreat. Instead, he gritted his teeth and used all his strength to resist. Clang! Even the abyssal sword cauldron could not withstand the attack and was sent flying. Then, the sword chi pressed down on Lin Sun. Even though Lin Sun had used all his strength to resist, he was still injured. His figure staggered back a few steps in the void, and he could not help but cough out a mouthful of blood. The sword chi was too terrifying. It tore a bloody sword mark on his chest and almost cut open his stomach. This was the power of the late-stage creator. Even though Lin Sun's main body possessed heaven-defying strength, it was inevitable that he would be injured in this life-and-death battle. But no matter what, Ji Chaoyin's furious sword was still blocked by his main body. At the same time, Ji Han's figure was surrounded and attacked by the 4 Taoist bodies. She suffered an unbearable blow. Then, her heavily injured figure was swallowed by the door of exile, and she followed in Ji Guiling's footsteps. Everything had happened too quickly. Even a mid-stage creator like Ji Han could not withstand the all-out attack of the 4 Taoist bodies. Of course, Lin Sun's main body had paid a price for this. He had been injured by the sword light, but fortunately, it was not serious. Ji Bowen and the others were extremely shocked and furious. The successive deaths had caused their faces to turn ashen, and their hands and feet to turn cold. Their Ji clan had only been able to produce 4 creation-level experts after countless years of history and accumulation. But first, Ji Guizhen had met with disaster in the eternal true world. Then, Ji Guiling and Ji Han had died one after another. One could imagine how heavy the blow was. In fact, it had shaken their foundations. It was enough to cause the Ji clan's power to plummet. How could this be? How could this be? Why? Ji Bowen and the others were about to go crazy. You deserve to die. Ji Chaoyin was completely enraged as well. She seemed to have gone mad. Boom. His robes fluttered, and his power erupted like a volcano. Dazzling eternal light of the Tao radiated from him, making him look like an enraged overlord. Especially the space between his brows, a bloody slit had actually silently split open, and then a wisp of gorgeous and scarlet-red sword light gradually emerged from this bloody slit. With every inch the sword light appeared, the world would tremble, and Ji Chaoyin's power would increase by a notch. When this sword light was completely revealed, it was an entire 7 inches long, devilishly scarlet red, and its edge was crystalline and dazzling. It seemed as if it was constructed from a strand of scarlet red blood of the gods, and the aura it emitted was so terrifying that it dyed the heavens and the earth a horrifying red color. Rumble! The entire phoenix-perched divine mountain violently trembled at this moment. Visible to the naked eye, the power of laws turned into streaks of light that shot out from different regions of the mountain and frantically gathered towards the 7-inch sword light, causing the power of the sword light to soar. Phoenix-perched divine sword. In an instant, Ji Bowen and the others couldn't help but reveal looks of shock. This was the supreme divine ability of their Ji clan, a forbidden, peerless divine ability. It was capable of summoning all of the various types of edictal energy that had been suppressing Phoenix-perched divine mountain, and then, along with the user's entire strength and cultivation, all of it would be gathered into a single streak of sword light. Such might could easily annihilate any creation realm expert, and only boundless realm experts would be able to resist it. Of course, it was utterly impossible for a boundless realm expert to be born in the various eras of the ruins of creation. Thus, this forbidden divine ability could be said to be the ultimate divine ability of the Ji clan, and it could be used to awe the world. But now, this divine ability had been executed by Ji Chaoyin, who was furious to the extreme. At this moment, Lin Sun's heart was extremely cold. He immediately retreated and stayed on guard from afar, and he calmed down from his resentful state. If I use all my strength to block it, I might be able to block it, but I'll definitely suffer heavy injuries. If that's the case, Ji Bowen and the other 8 transcendents would be able to kill me. Lin Sun realized the severity of the situation. Without hesitation, he gathered the 4 Taoist bodies to guard his body, and at the same time, he summoned Xia Ji from the Ark of Eternity. Xia Ji, I'll deal with this old thing. If I can't hold on, you'll lead me out of this place. Lin Sun's thoughts echoed in Xia Ji's mind. Let me do it. Xia Ji took a step forward, and actually charged towards the distant Ji Chaoyin. She was so fast that Lin Sun couldn't stop her. Get back here! Lin Sun's expression changed, and he chased after her. Go! At this moment, Ji Chaoyin spat out a cold voice from her lips. Swish! The scarlet 7-inch sword light, which had been accumulating power for a long time, swept out and slashed in the void. The world instantly fell into a scene of destruction, as if it couldn't withstand the power of this sword. And as Ji Chaoyin's sword slashed out, an indescribable killing aura manifested the terrifying scene of doomsday and the collapse of the heavens. This was the ultimate Phoenix sword, a supreme forbidden divine ability so powerful that even creation realm cultivators felt despair. Dense and obscure divine chains that seemed like destiny appeared on Xia Ji's graceful figure, and they were suffused with a supreme mysterious aura. Her body glowed as if she was burning her life. In her left hand, a vast expanse of white light of time surged out, and in her right hand, obscure and mysterious power of karma rose. When the ultimate Phoenix sword slashed down, Xia Ji suddenly put her hands together in front of her, and she formed a mysterious hand seal. And the light of time and the power of karma fused in the hand seal, and they were released with a bang. At this moment, the world suddenly fell silent, and an unbelievable scene appeared. Time flowed, and when karma interweaved like a river, the starry sky seemed to have fallen into a strange reincarnation, and everything showed a scene of withering, sinking, and being annihilated. Under the impact of this supreme power, the phenomenon in the world collapsed and disappeared like bubbles, and the 7-inch sword light that slashed down suddenly stopped in front of Xiaji, and it buzzed and trembled violently. Then, it exploded with a bang. The ultimate phoenix sword. Such a supreme taboo divine ability had actually been dealt with. Lin Sun, who chased up to Xiaji, couldn't help but be stunned at this moment. Boom! As Xiaji's hand seal, which was combined with the profound meaning of time and cause and effect, the world turned upside down, and everything seemed to fall into a kind of death cycle. Ji Chaoyin only felt that there was a vast expanse of whiteness in front of him, and unspeakable fear surged in his body and mind. The power of time and fate, like a torrent, wrapped his body and mind, and rushed into the unknown abyss of time and space. Then, under everyone's gaze, Ji Chaoyin, who was at the late stage of creation realm, was like a dead tree deprived of vitality. His spirit and the power of the Great Way all disappeared in the blink of an eye, and countless fine cracks appeared on his body like dense cobwebs. Bang! In the end, his body was completely unable to hold on any longer, and it rustled as it transformed into an expanse of ash that seemed like gray and hazy powder that drifted into the surroundings and vanished completely. There was a dead silence. Lin Sun was also shocked by this scene. At this moment, Xia Zhi's clear and melodious voice sounded in his ears. "This is the calamity of dust, the most powerful magic power I can master at present." 3 consecutive updates. Have a good weekend, everyone. Chapter 31-37. Between heaven and earth, the destructive torrent of power was still reverberating. But all the people in the field were silent. Ji Bowen and the other 8 existences in the realm of rules were completely stunned, as if struck by lightning. Ji Chaoyin, the famous late stage of creation in the ruins of fate, the only antique of the Ji family who had reached the late stage of creation, had been turned into a handful of ashes. All this happened in the blink of an eye. They had thought that with the supreme taboo, Phoenix Absolute Sword, they could easily kill the existences in the realm of creation. Wouldn't it be a piece of cake to kill Lin Sun, a figure in the realm of rules? But the reality slapped them hard in the face. The appearance of Xiaji, with only one blow, defeated the Phoenix Absolute Sword and killed Ji Chaoyin, a late stage of creation, into ashes. All of this caused Ji Bowen and the others to feel extremely terrified, and they felt like their guts were being torn apart. Mortal calamity, Lin Sun couldn't help but gasp. This kind of taboo magic, which combined the 2 supreme ways of time and cause and effect, was so horrible that even he was shocked. Lin Sun, it's up to you now. Xiaji turned her head and looked at Lin Sun with her clear eyes. Then, her slender figure suddenly fell down softly. Lin Sun held her in his arms and broke out in a cold sweat. When he was sure that Xiaji had just exhausted all her power and fell into a deep sleep, he breathed a sigh of relief. There was no doubt that Xiaji had exhausted all her power to display the magical power of mortal calamity, so that she directly fell into a deep sleep. After carefully placing Xiaji in the eternal boat, Lin Sun looked at Ji Bowen and the others in the distance. Ji Chaoyin, the biggest threat, had been eliminated by Xiaji. Although Ji Bowen and the others were numerous, they were no longer a threat. Yongqing, you leave first and take your clansmen away. I'll hold Lin Sun with the others. Ji Bowen gave the order in a deep voice, his face full of determination. That night, they had come to deprive Lin Fan and Su Bai of their talent, but no one expected that Lin Sun's sudden appearance would make the situation develop to such a point. First, Ji Changyun and Ji Zhongshan, 2 existences in the realm of rules, were slaughtered along with some other big shots. Following that, Ji Guiling, Ji Haowen, and Ji Chaoyin, the three Creator Realm cultivators, fell one after another. It was to the point that at this moment, Ji Bowen realized that not to mention changing the fate of his clan, it was extremely likely that his Ji clan would be in danger of being annihilated tonight. The blow from all of this was too great, and even a great figure like Ji Bowen, who was accustomed to experiencing great storms, couldn't help but feel despair in his heart. Patriarch! Ji Yongqing's eyes were red, his expression sorrowful. Quick! Ji Bowen roared. This is the territory of your Ji clan. Where else can we run to? Lin Sun said coldly in the distance. Buzz. At this moment, Lin Sun cast the seal of time. The dreamy light of time intertwined and turned into a seal that covered the sky and the sun. This was the first time Lin Sun had used the seal of time since he had stepped onto the eternal path of the Tao. Unlike before, the restrictions condensed by the seal of time were like a curtain that covered the sky. Compared to the power of the seal of time that Divine Emperor Eternal Night had set up outside the flowing light forbidden area, although it was still a bit inferior, it was not much weaker. The supreme forbidden power of the Divine Emperor Eternal Night, the seal of time, in an instant, Ji Bowen recognized it, and his heart sank to the bottom. The faces of the other Eternal Realm experts of the Ji clan also became extremely unsightly. A long time ago, the Divine Emperor Eternal Night once walked in the era of the gods. He was just one person, but he was invincible and covered the sky. He was a hero that even the Eternal Realm experts could only bow their heads. Even when the Divine Emperor Eternal Night was seriously injured by the Great Silence Calamity, in the countless years after he hid in the flowing light forbidden area, no one in the vast ruins of fortune was able to break into the flowing light forbidden area. The reason lay in the seal of time that covered the flowing light forbidden domain. But now, such a forbidden power was cast by Lin Sun, and it covered the whole world. This was tantamount to trapping all the leaders of the Ji clan in the territory of the Ji clan, like beasts in a cage. Now, it's time to settle the grievances between us. Lin Sun swallowed an incomparably wonderful divine medicine, and in the blink of an eye, his exhausted physical strength was restored. After sweeping through the 12 eternal god clans of the 9th heaven, Lin Sun had plundered a lot of such peerless divine medicines. Guys, let's fight him to the death, Ji Bowen roared. Under the stimulation of being at the end of the road, their fighting spirit was stimulated, and all of them were ready to fight to the death. Kill! The other great figures shouted, and without hesitation, each took out their eternal Tao soldiers, and launched their supreme divine powers towards Lin Sun. The divine power was vast, and the eternal Tao light raged between heaven and earth, but it couldn't break through the power of the seal of time. But at this time, no one cared about this. They seemed to have gone crazy, and all of them desperately rushed forward. A total of 9 eternal existences in the transcendent realm risked their lives. How terrifying would that scene be? Then, some were like the gods of fire, controlling the divine flames, burning the heavens and destroying the earth. Some were holding large halberds, wearing black armor, like a god of war descending to the world. Some roared, the wind rose, the clouds surged, lightning flashed, and thunder rumbled, releasing all kinds of supreme divine powers that could destroy the world. And some, all kinds of powerful and terrible attacks gathered together, all covering Lin Sun. Just the scene of destruction alone made people feel desperate. Ants trying to shake a tree. Lin Sun's deep black eyes were filled with a cold disdain. In the next moment, he suddenly stomped his foot on the ground and charged forward. The 4 Tao bodies stood on guard around his main body, and they each activated the eternal Tao weapons in their hands. They were like peerlessly dazzling and peerlessly sharp lights that stabbed forcefully into the vast torrent of energy. Boom, visible to the naked eye, the torrent of power formed by all kinds of supreme divine powers and Tao soldiers was torn straight, leaving a huge crack. No one knew how many supreme divine powers collapsed like bubbles. No one knew how many eternal Tao soldiers exploded in the earth-shattering collision. In the blink of an eye, the offensive of Ji Bowen and others was easily broken, and Lin Sun and his doppelganger had already approached them. It was too fast and too domineering. It was no different from directly crushing them. "Oh no! Hide!" Ji Bowen and others all changed their expressions when they heard the scream. But it was obviously a step too late. Lin Sun and the 4 Tao bodies suddenly separated, each staring at an opponent and attacking fiercely. Bang! When a gray-haired old man dodged, his figure was directly hit by the abyssal sword cauldron, and his whole body was like a straw under a mountain, unable to struggle. In other directions, the 4 doppelgangers of Greenwood, Chihua, Platinum, and Yellow Earth also showed an absolutely invincible posture, suppressing their opponents one by one. That scene was no different from a sheep entering a tiger's flock. So what if Lin Sun was in the transcendent realm? Even those in the early and middle stages of creation realm could be killed by Lin Sun, let alone these people in the same realm. In the eyes of Lin Sun, these opponents might have already set foot on the eternal Tao. The power controlled by him was enough to make hundreds of millions of people in the world look up to him. But for him, they were no different from chickens and dogs. In the blink of an eye, 5 people were suppressed. Such a scene made Ji Bowen and others, who had already decided to fight to the death, feel a sense of collapse. How could they fight like this? With the power they possessed, it was completely insufficient. If before, they still had the resolute fighting spirit to perish together with Lin Sun, but after witnessing such a scene, even this fighting spirit began to waver. Lin Sun didn't waste any time at all. His original body and doppelganger rushed out, and in just a few breaths, they suppressed the remaining 4 people, including Ji Bowen, one by one. From the beginning to the end of the battle, it was only a moment. From the beginning to the end, Lin Sun showed an irresistible and invincible posture, and no one could resist the killing from him at all. How could this be? How could this be? Ji Bowen, who was suppressed and kneeling on the ground, lost his soul, and his face was ashen. Everything that happened tonight was a huge blow to him. At this moment, his mind was blank, and he was at a loss as to what to do. There is no good thing in this world that can be obtained without paying a price. Do you really think that you can change the fate of your clan by working for the culprit behind the calamity of the era? Lin Sun's eyes were cold as he looked down at Ji Bowen, and he didn't hide his sarcasm at all. Now, you see, just because you worked for the culprit behind the scenes, your entire Ji clan will be removed from the world. This is the price you have to pay. No, it can't be. My Ji clan has survived the calamity of the era, and has survived for tens of thousands of years to this day. How could it be destroyed? It absolutely can't be, it can't be. Ji Bowen roared as if he had gone mad. Not only your Ji clan, but also the High Sun clan and the Jiang clan can't escape. After saying that, Lin Sun directly grabbed Ji Bowen and the other suppressed big shots of the Ji clan and pressed them into the abyssal sword cauldron. At this point, all the figures of the Ji clan who had stepped into the eternal realm had been captured in one fell swoop. But Lin Sun didn't care about this. With a wave of his sleeve, Lin Fan and Su Bai's figures appeared out of thin air. The wounds on both of them had healed, but Lin Sun was worried that their talent power had been damaged. This was what Lin Sun cared about the most. Stand still and don't move. Before Lin Fan and Su Bai could react, Lin Sun's divine senses had already penetrated into their bodies and began to carefully sense and investigate. Lin Fan and Su Bai looked at each other and could not help but look around. Between the mountains and rivers, the breath of destruction was still pervading, and everywhere was a scene of withering and dilapidation. The strong smell of blood and killing lingered in the void, making the 2 young people who had not yet set foot on the path of immortality feel a chill all over their bodies. "Father, are they all dead?" Lin Fan could not help but ask. Su Bai also looked at his master. This was the first time he had seen Lin Sun since they parted in Chaotian City in the vast Thousand Battles domain. He was both excited and ashamed in his heart. In the final analysis, it was because he was too weak that he was coerced by the enemy as a hostage and caused such a big disaster for his master. Well, don't worry. I'll take you away later. Lin Sun responded absent-mindedly, still concentrating on investigating and sensing the talent power of Lin Fan and Su Bai, not daring to make the slightest negligence. Those unimaginably powerful enemies were really all dead. Indescribable shock and excitement surged in Lin Sun and Su Bai's hearts. They felt that everything they had experienced today was like a dream. I'll send you a chapter first. There will be 2 more in the evening. Chapter 31-38. After a long time, Lin Sun retracted his divine senses, feeling much more relaxed. Lin Fan and Su Bai's talents had not been completely stripped away, but they had suffered a certain degree of impact, which would inevitably affect their path. If it were anyone else, they would be doomed to be helpless. However, this problem could be easily solved by the power of nirvana. They only needed to reshape their talents with the power of the profound meaning of nirvana. Lin Sun told Lin Fan and Su Bai about this, and they relaxed and became happy. Father, I've made you worry this time. A hint of embarrassment appeared on Lin Fan's handsome face. Lin Sun said in a gentle voice, When I was young and cultivating alone, I also received help from many seniors. This is nothing. After experiencing this, I believe you have also experienced how powerful the eternal realm is. In the future, just cultivate well. Lin Fan and Su Bai nodded in unison. Father, where are we? Lin Fan asked. After he and Su Bai were captured in the eternal true world, they had been in a coma. They had only just woken up tonight and did not know anything at all. The ruins of creation, in the Ji clan of the era of the gods. Lin Sun casually told the ins and outs of the matter. In the end, their ultimate goal was to deal with me, but you 2 little guys were implicated. Master, I've always remembered your words. You have to bear the corresponding responsibilities and risks to enjoy the benefit. This is nothing at all. Don't blame yourself. Su Bai, who had been silent, could not help but speak up at this moment. Senior brother Su Bai is right. Lin Fan echoed with a smile. Lin Sun looked at the 2 of them, and could not help but think of himself and Yun Qin Bai when they were young. One had the talent of devouring abyss, and the other was born with sword bone. The difference was that the relationship between them was not that of an enemy. The past was like smoke. With Lin Sun's current identity and cultivation, looking at the grievances between him and Yun Qin Bai, he only felt regret and sympathy for this person. How cruel it was to have one's own fate. Fanner, Su Bai, now that I've captured all the Eternal Realm characters of the Ji clan, what do you think I should do with the other members of the Ji clan next? Lin Sun suddenly asked. Lin Fan and Su Bai were stunned, realizing that Lin Sun wanted to test their mentality on this matter. Father, the main culprit has been eliminated. The others are all innocent. It's better to let them go. After a moment of silence, Lin Fan said. Lin Sun did not comment and looked at Su Bai. What will you do? Su Bai looked calm and said, Today's matter is settled by my master, so it should be up to him to make a decision, but I will definitely come here again in the future to wash away today's shame. Lin Sun turned his gaze towards Lin Fan. If we do as you say, in the future, those surviving members of the Ji clan come to take revenge on our Lin clan, what should we do? Lin Fan didn't give it any thought before he said, So long as I become stronger than them, then they won't have any chance to take revenge at all. Not to mention that we cultivators spend our entire lives fighting and slaughtering, so it's unavoidable for us to make many enemies. Could it be that we would be afraid of their revenge? After pausing for a moment, Lin Fan said with determination in his eyes, The existence of enemies will only force me to keep moving forward and become stronger. Lin finally smiled and said with relief, You have a kind heart, but after all, you lack experience and don't understand the dangers of the world. Just like today, with my ability, it is enough to sweep through the G dynasty. Those eternal realm figures of the G clan, but why do they still dare to attack you? First, they are confident that they can capture me, and second, they have more powerful people behind them to support them. Speaking of this, Lin Sun looked serious. This also means that you may become extremely powerful in the future, but what if your children and relatives are also threatened by the enemy? Lin Fan was suddenly stunned and fell into deep thought. At this time, Lin Sun looked at Su Bai and said, "Your decision is very good. Get up from where you fall. Remember, don't take me, your master, too seriously in the future. My decision can't replace your will. My master said that a disciple doesn't have to be inferior to a master, but in my opinion, a disciple can be inferior to a master as long as he sticks to his state of mind and seeks his own path." Su Bai trembled and saluted solemnly. "Disciple has learned." Lin Sun patted him on the shoulder. "Don't put too much pressure on yourself. It will affect your heart to seek the Tao and become a burden instead." Su Bai nodded. The shackles of obsession in his heart seemed to have been broken, and his whole person became relaxed. From the time he worshipped Lin Sun as his master, he had set catching up with him as his goal. He was afraid that he would disappoint his master if he went too slowly. Therefore, over the years, he had treated himself with an extremely harsh attitude. No matter what he did, he was thinking about how to make himself stronger and how to not let his master Lin Sun down. As a result, he had unknowingly brought great pressure and burden to himself. There was no other way. His master was too powerful, and he could not catch up with him even if he tried his best. On the contrary, the gap between them continued to widen. At this time, Lin Sun's words were not the essence of the Great Way. They were very simple and casual, but for Su Bai, they completely opened the knot in his heart, which was no less than a sharp warning and enlightening. "When the problem of the G clan is solved, I will take you to an interesting place." With a wave of his sleeve, Lin Sun removed the seal of time and took Lin Fan and Su Bai to the distance. A quarter of an hour later, the three kinds of divine-level power covering the sky above the G clan, the phoenix-perched divine mountain, and the wealth that belonged to the G clan accumulated over countless years were all taken away by Lin Sun. The G clan also paid the price. All the immortal-level characters were killed, and the emperors were crippled one by one. This was the same fate as the eternal gods in the ninth heaven. This was Lin Sun's attitude and approach. All of this was seen by Lin Fan and Su Bai, and both had different feelings and thoughts in their hearts. In this regard, Lin Sun did not ask any more questions. He did not expect his son and disciple to have the same attitude and approach as him. As long as they could learn something from this incident, it was enough. The night was deep. Lin Sun took Lin Fan and Su Bai and left the era of the gods that night, heading in the direction of the divine city of fortune. When he became the lord of the divine city of fortune, he was only at the heavenly longevity realm. Although he could control and use the power of the rules in the city, he could not comprehend its true meaning. But now it was different. He was already in existence at the great perfection realm, enough to comprehend the true mystery of the rules of the divine city of fortune. Back then, Chen Linkong also said that as the lord of the divine city of fortune, as long as Lin Sun reached the eternal Tao, he could take away the river diagram that guarded the sky above the divine city of fortune. This was a treasure left behind by Chen Linkong's grandfather, Chen Shi. At dawn, the news of the destruction of the Ji clan spread like the wind. It spread like wildfire. The entire Great Zhou region was shaken, and endless waves were set off. The Ji clan, a god race that could be ranked in the top 3 in the ruins of creation, had actually been annihilated in a single night. Who wouldn't be shocked when such news spread out? Who did this? They escaped the destruction of the era, but they couldn't escape the attack of a single night. The mighty Ji clan has fallen just like that? This is going to change the world. The news continued to spread, and everywhere it reached, it would cause a huge uproar. Countless voices of shock and astonishment would resound. From this, it could be seen how great the shock brought to people when such a behemoth like the G clan fell. In the midst of the discussion, a group of people arrived at the place where the divine mountain of Phoenix Perch was originally located. However, the divine mountain of Phoenix Perch had long been refined and taken away, so it seemed empty and desolate. It's really a disaster. The faces of this group of people all changed. They came from the Gao Yang clan and the Jiang clan respectively, and they were led by two existences in the creation realm. One was called Gao Yanghui. He was dressed in a black robe and had black hair. He was thin, but he looked as handsome as a young man. The other one was called Jiang Tao. He wore a black battle robe, and his hair was like a halberd. His eyes were cold and sharp. At this moment, the two existences in the creation realm were also stunned and shocked. This time, they came to discuss how to divide the fortune of Lin soon after capturing him. Who would have thought that when they arrived, it would be such a scene? For a moment, everyone was silent, and their expressions were uncertain. The atmosphere was extremely depressing. "There is a stone tablet there," suddenly Gao Yanghui said, and his eyes were fixed on the land in the distance. There were broken walls and ruins, and a stone tablet stood like a sword. On the stone tablet, a line of simple and natural handwriting was engraved. Jiang Tao, who also found the stone tablet, read it casually, "Within a month, I will wait for you in the divine city of fortune. I will take revenge on you if you have any grievances. If you don't come, I will pay a visit in person a month later." Everyone's eyes were fixed. It's Lin Sun. It's really him. These big shots from the two clans all showed an expression of, "I knew it." But the next moment, a storm arose in their hearts. The whole G clan had 4 creation realm and 12 exceeding rules realm. It was so powerful that it was no weaker than the Gao Yang clan and the Jiang clan. But in one night it was destroyed by Lin Sun. How could they not be shocked? It's been less than 100 years. How could this boy become so powerful? Someone said in a trembling voice. The expressions of the others were also very ugly. Their understanding of Lin Sun was still at the time when he left the divine city of fortune. At that time, Lin Sun was only in the immortal realm of heaven longevity. But now, everything that happened in the G clan undoubtedly proved that Lin Sun already had the terrifying power to kill existences in the creation realm. Moreover, the G clan was destroyed in one night. If it was the Gao Yang clan or the Jiang clan, would they be able to withstand Lin Sun's attack? Just thinking about it made their hearts palpitate, and it was difficult for them to calm down. What should we do? Soon, everyone's eyes turned to the 2 creation realm existences, Gao Yanghui and Jiang Tao. Chapter 31-39. What should they do? This was undoubtedly a tricky problem. Gao Yanghui and Jiang Tao looked at each other and couldn't help frowning. With the example of the destruction of the G clan, how could they dare to underestimate Lin Sun? In fact, they even had the faint idea of retreating in their hearts. Of all people to provoke, why did they have to provoke a fierce existence who had the power to destroy an entire clan? But the handwriting on the stone tablet made the 2 existences in the creation realm realize that even if they chose to retreat, they would still be visited by Lin Sun a month later. At that time, the consequences would be serious. Our action this time is under the will of the supreme ruler behind the era calamity. We can't give up halfway. After a while, Gao Yanghui suddenly took a deep breath, and his eyes were filled with determination. What's more, Lin Sun has already declared war. If we retreat, won't we be a joke to the world? His words were high-sounding, but everyone knew that Gao Yanghui's decision was really a last resort. Of course, no one would expose this. Because they all knew that they really couldn't back down. That's right. We can't just let it go like this. Although Lin Sun's strength is strong enough to annihilate the G clan, Don't forget that there are hundreds of civilizations in the ruins of fortune. Just the civilizations that have figures at the eternal realm are as many as 33. If we join forces, it's not impossible to annihilate Lin soon. Jiang Tao also said in a low voice. Everyone was stunned at first, and then their eyes lit up. Old Ginger was really spicier. If they only relied on the strength of the High Sun clan and the Jiang clan to deal with Lin Sun, they were bound to suffer heavy casualties. But if they joined forces with other forces, the gathered power would not only become extremely terrifying, but the casualties would also be greatly reduced. Moreover, with the status and influence of the High Sun clan and the Jiang clan, it would be easy for them to join forces with the eternal realm figures of all the major clans in the world. What Brother Jiang said is exactly what I think. Gao Yanghuai was in high spirits and said, "Don't forget that this is the ruins of fate, which is covered with the rule power of the supreme ruler behind the era calamity. And we are acting under the order of the supreme ruler. I don't believe that the supreme ruler will tolerate Lin Sun's arrogance." His words were powerful and sonorous. Jiang Tao's eyes flickered, and he couldn't help but take another glance at Gao Yanghuai before he said, "Taoist brother's words have awoken me from my dreams. In my opinion, there's no time to lose, and we should take action immediately." There was a hint of excitement in his voice. "All right." Gao Yanghuai nodded. Immediately, both of them led their clansmen back to their respective clans and started to take action. Just 3 days later, all the epochs in the ruins of fortune were stirred. The High Sun clan and the Jiang clan united and issued an edict to the world that they would go to the divine ruins to kill Lin Sun in 10 days. When this news came out, the whole world was shocked. The Yin clan, Liangqiu clan, and Ying clan have all declared that they will fully support the operation of the two god clans. The Divine Race's Pu clan has also announced that they will arrive at the Fortune Divine City in 10 days. The Chu clan of the God clan, for a time, all the god clans in the world expressed that they would dispatch the eternal realm existences of their clans to act together with the High Sun clan and the Jiang clan, causing a great uproar in the civilizations of the various epochs. The world was in an uproar. Lin, who could have imagined that his return after so many years would cause such a great commotion? It is said that he destroyed the Ji clan of the God clan overnight and declared war on the High Sun clan and the Jiang clan. It is precisely this matter that completely infuriated all the God clans in the world and made him the target of public criticism. I have to say that this Lin Sun is indeed a ruthless person. How can those god clans not be afraid of him when he is so powerful? The world is going to be in chaos. All kinds of discussions sounded continuously. There were hundreds of epochs in the entire ruins of fortune, but in just 3 days, they were all alarmed by this matter. And Lin Sun's name resounded throughout the world in these 3 days, and was known by the cultivators of various epochs. Lin Sun has the power to overturn the Ji clan. His combat strength is definitely enough to kill a creation realm existence. As everyone knows, he has already mastered the secrets of the Divine City of Fortune and became the master of the Divine City of Fortune. Under such circumstances, even if all the god clans join forces to deal with him, I'm afraid they will have to pay a price. It's useless to talk about this now. In 10 days we will know the result. Back to 3 days ago. Lin Sun led Lin Fan and Su Bai across the starry sky, and they finally arrived at the Divine City of Fortune after half a day. What a magnificent city! When he saw the Divine City of Fortune standing in the starry sky from afar, Lin Fan could not help but exclaim in surprise. The majesty of this city was absolutely rare in the world, and even the stars seemed extraordinarily small in front of this city. A strange light appeared in Su Bai's eyes. On the way here, he and Lin Fan had already learned about the origins of the Divine City of Fortune from Lin Sun, but when they saw it with their own eyes, they felt completely different. Lin Sun's gaze looked towards the distant heights of the Divine City of Fortune. There was a chaotic and obscure sky covering it, and when he looked carefully, he could vaguely see a mysterious treasure floating in it. It was shaped like a dark tortoise shell. That was the river diagram. It was the supreme treasure left behind by Chun Linkong's grandfather. It was precisely because of the protection of this treasure that as long as one confirmed the Tao and transcended the tribulation in this city, one would not have to worry about being attacked by the Great Silence lifeless tribulation. Of course, the power of the rules in this city would suppress the power of all cultivators. Once an Eternal Realm expert approached, he would be bombarded and kept out. Even an Eternal Realm expert could only enter and exit the Divine City of Fortune by suppressing his cultivation to the level of Ju Xian Emperor Ancestor. All of this meant that unless Lin Sun, the owner of this city, allowed it, other Eternal Realm existences could not avoid the killing of the Great Silence lifeless tribulation in the city. Back then, after Lin Sun left, many sages of the ancient Battle Alliance, such as Wuyang and Xing Jia, stayed in the city. One reason was to avoid the attack of the Great Silence lifeless tribulation, and the other was to comprehend the power of the origin of creation. In this way, they could confirm their Tao and break through the realm in the city. Let's go. Lin Sun led Lin Fan and Su Bai into the city. As the owner of this city, he would naturally not be suppressed by the power of the rules in this city. When Lin Sun's figure appeared in the city, the scenes of the various areas of this huge divine city were also presented in his heart. At this moment, he clearly felt the power of the rules that belonged to this city. It was like shapeless air that existed everywhere and covered every inch of the city. It was profound, unfathomable, and filled with inconceivable profundities. When Lin Sun was still in the heavenly longevity realm, he could sense this power of rules, but he could not recognize or comprehend it at all. But it was different now. With a thought, all kinds of magical auras of the Great Path rushed into his heart like a tide, making him have the urge to immediately meditate and cultivate. But in the end, he resisted. As soon as he returned, Lin Sun planned to meet those old friends first. So they're cultivating in the depths of the creation star dome. Soon, Lin Sun captured the auras of Battle Emperor Wuyang and Sacred Buddha Xing Jia. He immediately teleported with Lin Fan and Su Bai. Not long after, they arrived at the place where the creation star dome was located. This was an extremely vast plain. Not a single blade of grass grew, and the ground was hard, paved with a layer of hard black divine stones. On the other hand, the sky was densely dotted with dazzling and bright stars. Every single star revealed a different aura of the Grand Tao, and they floated there silently like numerous sky lanterns that emanated completely different divine radiance of the Grand Tao and suffused this vast expanse of the heavens and the earth. This creation star dome was created by Chun Shi, the grandfather of Chun Linkong. It adopted the cultivation system of hundreds of eras in this star dome, unreservedly for future generations to observe and comprehend. In the past, Lin Sun realized the ultimate mystery of the creation star dome here, and thus became the master of the creation divine city. Just like in the past, in this area where the creation star dome was located, many figures were sitting cross-legged and meditating, all comprehending the cultivation power in the creation star dome. Some frowned and meditated, some sat motionless, some were beaming with joy, and some were in a daze when they saw this scene. Lin Fan and Su Bai could not help but feel curious. Seeing this, Lin Sun immediately said, "You can meditate here and experience the cultivation systems of different eras. This will be beneficial to your future cultivation." Lin Fan and Su Bai agreed without hesitation. Lin Sun, on the other hand, went straight to the depths of this area. The deeper they went, the fewer people there were. In the end, there were only over 20 figures sitting cross-legged in the vast world by themselves. When Lin Sun arrived, these figures all sensed him and opened their eyes one after another. "Everyone, look who's here! Haha, no wonder I'm so restless today. It turns out that my little friend is here. Lin Sun, why did you return at this time?" For a time, all kinds of voices sounded. These figures got up one after another and greeted him with a smile. They were led by War Emperor Wu Yang, Xingjia Holy Buddha, and Dragon Elephant War Emperor. They all looked surprised and happy. "Greetings, seniors." Lin Sun also smiled and saluted them. He was naturally very happy to meet them again after a long time. "Hey, you've achieved the Eternal Tao?" Wu Yang could see the difference in Lin Sun's aura at a glance and could not help showing a strange expression. Hearing this, the other old monsters also reacted and were stunned for a moment, feeling a little incredulous. They clearly remembered that when Lin Sun left the Creation Divine City, he was only at the Longevity Realm. But now, in less than 100 years, Lin Sun had achieved the Eternal Tao. This speed of promotion shocked these old guys, and they all had different expressions. "Do you want to sit down and tell us what you've experienced all these years and how you achieved the Eternal Tao?" Wu Yang asked with a smile. "Yes, today we've reunited with our little friend Lin after a long time. We should drink and talk at the same time. Only then will we be happy. What do you think?" someone suggested. Everyone nodded and echoed with a smile. More updates for you. Chapter 3140. Lin Sun and the sages of the ancient Desolation region sat on the ground, drinking and chatting. Before long, Lin Sun told them some of his experiences after leaving the Divine City of Fortune. For example, when did he attain Eternal Tao, when did he attack the Ninth Heaven, and why did he return to the Divine Ruins of Fortune this time? When they learned that the Ji clan of the Era of the Gods was destroyed by Lin Sun, all the old monsters present were shocked speechless. "In terms of combat strength, I'm afraid we're already inferior to our young friend Lin Sun." After a while, Xing Jia sighed with emotion. The others were overwhelmed with emotions. These old men had attained Eternal Tao for many years, but their current cultivation was only at the level of the Transcendent of Rules, far inferior to Lin Sun, whose cultivation kept rising like the tide after the rain. Moreover, even though they were both in the Transcendent of Rules, Lin Sun already had the ability to kill creation experts and overturn the Ji clan of the God clan. This was far from what these old fellows could compare to. For a moment, everyone sighed incessantly. It was undeniable that Lin Sun was now an overlord on the path of Eternal Tao. He was like the sun hanging high in the sky, shining with boundless light. Even in all the heavens, he was a powerful existence that could be admired by billions of people, and even Eternal Realm experts had to be wary of him. "In that case, you're planning to use this opportunity to destroy the High Sun clan and the Jiang clan as well?" Wu Yang suddenly asked. His words caused everyone's eyes to focus on Lin Sun. Lin Sun nodded calmly. "They're just like the Ji clan, lackeys of the mastermind. If I don't kill them, there will definitely be a lot of trouble in the future." Everyone looked at each other, their emotions tumbling. In the past, among the hundreds of civilizations in the ruins of Fortune, who would dare to challenge the three supreme god clans of the Era of the Gods? How could they not be shocked by Lin Sun's current attitude? It could be said that in the entire ruins of Fortune, only Lin Sun had such a foundation and courage. If anyone else were to clamor like this, they would probably be laughed at for overestimating their own strength. But you should know that the ruins of Fortune is surrounded by the power of the mastermind. If you're targeted, I'm afraid you'll attract an unpredictable disaster." Wu Yang said. Lin Sun had already thought of this problem, and he said in a low voice, "This is also the reason why I returned to the Divine City of Fortune. Here, there is the power of the source of fortune and the protection of the river diagram. If a war breaks out, even if there is an unpredictable disaster, there should be a way to resolve it." Only then did everyone understand. Lin Sun was the lord of the Divine City of Fortune, and he was able to utilize the power of the rules of the city. So if he encountered a dangerous attack like the Deathless Calamity, then he would naturally be able to retreat into the city at the first possible moment to avoid it. If those enemies really dare to come, we old fellows naturally won't sit back and do nothing. the Dragon-Elephant Battle Emperor said with a murderous aura. That's right. Although we can't be of much help, it's still not a problem for us to deal with some people of the same cultivation level. The Dark Blood Underworld Emperor, the Myriad Star Divine Tree, and the other old guys spoke one after another. Lin Sun laughed. I'm just worried that, with the G clan as an example, they might not dare to come. Everyone laughed, their expressions relaxed. The banquet only came to an end late at night. Lin Sun left and headed towards the Silent Night Ridge. That was originally the residence of the Eternal Night Divine Emperor 13. From the conversation with Wu Yang and the others, Lin Sun learned that not long after he left the Divine City of Fortune, 13 left alone to wander in the civilized world of other epochs, and had not returned until now. This made Lin Sun feel a little regretful. Originally, he had planned to meet with 13 and talk about the matter of Xiaji, but now he could only give up. After watching Lin Sun leave, Wu Yang suddenly waved his sleeve and set up a restrictive formation in this area, isolating it from the outside world. What are you doing, Wu Yang? Someone said in a daze. Wu Yang took a deep breath and said, when Lin Sun left just now, he left behind some treasures for me and you old fellows to divide. Treasures? Everyone couldn't help but laugh, not taking it seriously. At our realm, what treasures do we need? Lin Sun is treating us like outsiders, someone muttered. Someone laughed and said, this is also young friend Lin's kind intention. The treasures don't matter, but the intention is important. Wu Yang, you'd better return those treasures. How can we old fellows accept his treasures? If word of this gets out, we'll definitely be laughed at. The Dark Blood Underworld Emperor's attitude was very firm. Wu Yang's gaze swept across the crowd and said, you can make a decision after seeing them. She waved her hand. Whoosh! A brilliant and colorful treasure light emerged. There were all kinds of divine materials, treasures, Dao weapons, elixirs, and all kinds of dazzling lineup. All of a sudden, everyone was stunned, and they couldn't help but show astonishment on their faces. These treasures that were piled up like a small mountain were all eternal-level treasures. Every single one of them was extremely rare, and all of them were divine treasures that could play a great role in their cultivation. No one could stay calm. Previously, they didn't think much of it. They felt that Lin Sun was treating them like outsiders by giving them gifts. But now they all realized how important these treasures were. They were not as simple as they had imagined. Even the Dark Blood Underworld Emperor, who had been resolute just now, had his eyes glowing at this moment. He breathed rapidly and said, mysterious Iron of the Way. I've been searching for so many years but haven't found it, but... Wu Yang saw the reactions of these old monsters and couldn't help but laugh. She was really emotional in her heart. At first, she also refused. But there was no other way. Lin Sun didn't allow her to refuse at all. She didn't care too much at first, but after seeing these treasures, she was shocked for the first time. Only then did she realize how valuable these treasures that Lin Sun had given them were. And he was actually giving these treasures to them. This kind of intention made Wu Yang feel endless emotion, and her heart felt warm. Wu Yang knew that Lin Sun was repaying them. When Lin Sun was young, he had obtained her inheritance in the absolute domain of the ancient desolation domain. He had also obtained the inheritance power of Taixien, Divine Elephant, Xing Jia, and other old fellows. And now, Lin Sun was repaying them in this way. Silent Night Ridge. In a hall shrouded in the night. Fanner, Su Bai. Lin Sun called Lin Fan and Su Bai to his side. I'm going to cultivate in seclusion for some time. You two can travel around the city. Remember, don't go out of the city. Yes. Lin Fan and Su Bai nodded together. Until they left, Lin Sun sat cross-legged and began to meditate. Currently, he had already surpassed perfection of the realm of justice and was only a step away from the realm of creation. If he had been in the eternal true world, Lin Sun would not have dared to try to reach creation realm. He was worried that once he triggered the Great Desolation fatal disaster, everything would be over. All his previous efforts would go to waste. After all, he was very clearly aware that the culprit behind the calamity of an era had set his sights on him, and that culprit would definitely seize any opportunity to strike a lethal blow at him. But things were different now. This was the Fortune Divine City. He had the protection of the river diagram treasure, and he was also the master of Fortune City. He controlled the laws of the city, so even if the Great Silence Lifespan Tribulation descended, he could still avoid it. For Lin Sun, this was undoubtedly the best time to prove the Tao and creation realm. However, there was one more thing Lin Sun had to do before he reached the creation realm. That was to comprehend the mysteries of this city. Let's begin. Lin Sun took a deep breath, and then various profundities instantly surged into appearance like tidewater in his mind. In his days, Lin Sun seemed to have seen the scenes he'd sensed when he comprehended the profundities of the star sky of creation all those years ago. A figure walked through the river of time. He wore green clothes and carried an ancient sword on his back. He seemed to be searching for something. Every single time he passed a civilization of an era, a grand and mysterious formation diagram would float up into appearance behind him, and it fully displayed the cultivation system of that civilization down to the slightest detail. Shockingly, that formation diagram was the infinite divine talisman. This figure was naturally Chun Linkong's ancestor, Chun Shi. His figure seemed as if he was unafraid of the restraints and impacts of time and space, and he was like a god that walked through different eras. After a long time, he appeared in an area that seemed like chaos. After that, a great tribulation descended abruptly. This tribulation was shapeless, colorless, and immaterial. It was born from the void, and it seemed as if the laws of the grand Tao, time, and destiny would be completely wiped out by this tribulation. An indescribable feeling of suffocation assaulted Lin Sun's mental state like a tsunami. He knew that this was the might of the Grand Silence Lifespan Tribulation. Chen Shi, who wore green clothes, let out a long sigh when facing such a scene. Sure enough, there's a mastermind behind all of this. After that, the scene before him changed. Chen Shi had personally established the divine city of creation amidst the chaos, and he'd left the star sky of creation that was a combination of over 100 civilizations within the city. In the end, Chen Shi withdrew a completely round black tortoise shell and tossed it lightly. It instantly transformed into an invisible energy of the laws and order that enveloped the sky above the divine city of creation. From that day onward, the Grand Silence Lifespan Tribulation that countless Eternal Realm experts were afraid of had never appeared before the divine city of creation again. After so many years, Lin Sun, who had already reached the Eternal Realm, had a different state of mind when he sensed this familiar scene again. Only now did he realize that the energy of the laws within the divine city of creation was born from the quintessence energy of the ruins of creation. Simply speaking, it could be called the laws of creation. Only now did he realize that the river diagram was capable of resisting the attacks of the Grand Silence Lifespan Tribulation, and it was exactly because of this treasure that the quintessence energy of the ruins of creation had been protected until now. In other words, even though the power of the mastermind behind the scenes had enveloped the surroundings of the ruins of creation, the reason it hadn't truly occupied the quintessence of the ruins of creation was because the river diagram was obstructing it. My rebirth profundities are capable of resisting the laws of creation controlled by the mastermind behind the scenes. But it's very obvious that the river diagram possesses a similar ability. At this moment, Lin Sun sensed the profundities of the laws of creation, and he'd obtained numerous comprehensions. He realized that it was very likely that the reason Chun Linkong's grandfather, Chun Shi, was able to travel through the various civilizations and be fearless of the mastermind behind the scenes was because he'd comprehended and grasped the profundities contained within the river diagram. Later in the day, Cavan was on the verge of exploding. Chapter 31:41. The rule of creation was born in the original power of the ruins of creation. As Lin soon meditated, all kinds of mysteries about the rule of creation emerged one by one and were all comprehended by him. The word creation had many meanings. Sometimes it could be described as opportunity, and sometimes it could be described as nature. But most of the time, it was regarded as creation and nurture, creating the world, mountains and rivers, and nurturing all phenomena of the Great Way. The rule of creation was related to creation and nurture. As Lin soon meditated, waves of waves emerged in his heart. The reason was that the rule of creation was too powerful. Mastering such power was like being the master of the creation of the world. The birth of a world originated from chaos. When chaos was created, heaven and earth were divided, and all phenomena were born. This was the power of the rule of creation. It could create a world in the chaos, and then nurture all phenomena of the Great Way in this world. This was different from the power of the eternal existence of the creation realm. The creation realm melted all kinds of power of rules, so they could create all kinds of matter, and had the ability to turn stone into gold and mortals into gods. The rule of creation was to create a world and nurture a real world with all phenomena of the Great Way. At this time, Lin Sun finally understood the meaning of the ruins of creation. Every single time the calamity of an era descended, the quintessence energy of the ruins of creation would create and nurture a new era of civilization, thus allowing the path of cultivation to continue on in a cycle. For example, the civilizations of all eras distributed in the ruins of creation were all created and nurtured by the ruins of creation. This was also what shocked Lin Sun. The ruins of creation was equivalent to the nest of civilizations of all eras. When those eras were destroyed in the era calamity one by one, they would appear in the ruins of creation, so that today hundreds of eras of civilizations coexisted here. It was like the fallen leaves returning to their roots. Of course, some eras of civilizations completely disappeared from the world, such as the immortal martial arts civilization of the last era. If so, does it mean that I can create one era after another by mastering the rule of creation? Lin Sun's heart trembled slightly, and he was shocked by this idea. No, the laws of creation can only create a world and give birth to the phenomena of the Grand Tao. However, taboo energies like life, time, and karma aren't created by the laws of creation. Soon, Lin Sun realized the problem and calmed down. This means that the ruins of fate can only create the world and the phenomena of Tao, but it can't create the taboo forces of life, time, karma, and so on. Interesting. Lin Sun thought of the ultimate. As one of the four great ruins of the Tao, the ruins of End seemed to be the destination and home of all things. Even the eternal figures that had fallen here would transform into the most primitive vitality energy and be buried within the ruins of End. When the calamity of an era arrived, the ruins of End would undergo a shocking change and release the vitality that was buried within it. In contrast, the ruins of creation represented the beginning and origin of everything, and it created a new civilization after the calamity of an era. It went on, growing and multiplying without end. If the ruins of creation is the starting point of everything, and the ultimate ruin is the end of everything, then what kind of secrets do the Kunlun ruins and the ruins of wonderful Tao each have? At this moment, Lin Sun was lost in his thoughts. In the past, he hadn't stepped foot onto the eternal path of the Tao, so it was utterly impossible for him to think of all these things. Only now did he suddenly realize that the existences of the four great ruins of Tao actually contained supreme secrets that were unknown to the world. Supreme secrets that were unknown to the world. Time passed day by day. On the third day of Lin Sun's closed-door cultivation, the news of the various divine clans responding to the High Sun clan and Jiang clan summons and deciding to send forces to annihilate Lin Sun in 10 days' time had spread to the divine city of creation. For a time, the cultivators in the city were in an uproar and trembled. It was also from this day onward that the cultivators that had gathered from the various civilizations of the various eras had hurriedly evacuated from the city. They didn't dare stay at all, as they were deeply afraid that they would be affected by the calamity that would arrive in 10 days' time. In merely less than a day of time, the exceedingly bustling divine creation city had become empty, cold, desolate, and empty. Only some people who weren't afraid of death chose to stay, but they were a very small number. All of this was found out by Wu Yang, Xing Jia, and the other old fellows, and they practically realized the severity of the problem at the first possible moment. This time, it wasn't just the forces of the High Sun clan and Jiang clan, but also all the divine clans in the world. They gathered all the eternal realm figures of the divine clans in the world to deal with Lin Sun. How could Wu Yang and the others sit still? They immediately set off for Silent Night Ridge to discuss with Lin Sun how to deal with this matter. Seniors, my father is currently in closed-door cultivation. Lin Fan and Su Bai stood guard in front of the closed door of the main hall. When he saw Wu Yang and the others arrive, Lin Fan cupped his hands in greeting and told them that Lin Sun was in closed-door cultivation. Wu Yang and the others frowned. 10 days later, the enemy's forces would arrive at the city. Time was too tight. Little guy, how long will your father be in closed-door cultivation this time? Xing Jia asked. Lin Fan shook his head, indicating that he didn't know. Forget it. We'll just wait here. Wu Yang made a decision. The other old fellows also nodded when they saw this. Although the situation was urgent, they knew that if Lin Sun was at a critical moment of cultivation, they must not disturb him. Of course, if Lin Sun showed no signs of coming out before the enemy arrived, they naturally could not wait like this. At the same time, Lin Sun, who was in closed-door cultivation, was in a wonderful state of epiphany. Yesterday, he had thoroughly understood the profound meaning of the law of creation, and his great path law had also undergone amazing changes. Putting aside the other profound meaning of the great path, he had now mastered 4 kinds of supreme forbidden Tao power. They were nirvana, time, the 5 sequences of the ultimate, and the law of creation that he had just mastered. Among them, nirvana was the core and the root of the power of the great path. The law of time was the condensation of the talent power of the devouring abyss. The 5 sequences of the ultimate and the law of creation came from the power of the 2 great path ruins respectively. It could be said that these 4 supreme Daos allowed Lin Sun to have a heaven-defying combat power that far surpassed those in the same realm on the eternal path. After understanding the profound meaning of the law of creation, Lin Sun's own cultivation also produced a wonderful change. It was as if a layer of window paper had been pierced, and it completely erupted. He wanted to prove his Tao and break through the realm at the first time, but at this moment, an unexpected change happened. The river diagram, the treasure that had been guarding over the divine city of creation for countless years, seemed to have sensed something. It immediately released an obscure and vast power, which shrouded Lin Sun's figure. Then, Lin Sun's figure disappeared out of thin air, as if he had been taken away from time and space. Everything that happened suddenly made him feel like he was finished. He was completely caught off guard and couldn't resist at all. Amidst the boundless and boundless chaos, a vast and mighty long river surged and surged, its beginning and end unknown. On the other hand, the images of the civilizations of the various eras floated within the vast river, and they were like numerous waves that revealed all sorts of unbelievable scenes. There were too many mysteries contained in an era's civilization. There were all kinds of phenomena, boundless worlds, endless creatures, a wide variety of races, a complete cultivation system with strict hierarchy, but now, the phantoms of civilizations of various eras were reflected in a mighty long river of chaos. Such a scene shocked Lin Sun. He couldn't help thinking of one thing in his mind. All those years ago in the world of samsara, in the rebirth of freedom, he'd once seen a vast and ceaselessly flowing river. However, That river reflected the strongest expert of every single grand Tao realm in this era. However, this river that flowed amidst the primal chaos was different, and it reflected the civilizations of numerous eras. Where was this? As soon as this thought came to Lin Sun's mind, a wonderful idea emerged in his mind. This is the long river of eras, which exists in the origin of the ruins of creation. This place, like the mountain of 5 sequences in the ultimate ruins, the sea of fate in the Kunlun ruins, and the hill of wonders in the ruins of Tao, are the most forbidden places in the world. This was not a voice, but a kind of enlightenment, which naturally emerged in Lin Sun's mind. All of a sudden, Lin Sun was more and more shocked. He had seen the mountain of 5 sequences, namely Penglai, Yingzhou, Fanghu, Daiyu, and Yuanjiao, which were located in the deepest part of the ultimate ruins of Tao. But this was the first time he had heard of and seen the river of eras in front of him. As for the sea of fate in the Kunlun ruins and the hill of wonders in the ruins of Tao, it was the first time he had heard of them. After a while, Lin Sun calmed down and asked silently in his heart, "Why am I here?" As expected, a thought emerged in his mind. Only by facing tribulations in the long river of eras can one have the foundation to achieve transcendence from the changing of eras. He has also walked on this road. Before Lin Sun could ask who this he was, a tall and handsome figure emerged in his mind. The man was dressed in a green robe and carried an ancient sword on his back. He stepped on the waves of many eras and walked towards the vast distance. Chen Shi. It turned out to be him. Lin Sun's heart churned as he recalled the ethereal voice of Chen Shi's figure after he comprehended the mysteries of the star of creation. In the future, if someone can see through my layout here, perhaps it means that I am not the only one on this road. At that time, Lin Sun had wondered what kind of great way Chen Shi had walked on this road alone. But now, looking at the mighty river of eras surging in the chaos, Lin Sun finally understood. This path towards the Tao represented attaining true transcendence from the change of eras. And to achieve this, one must first face tribulations in the long river of eras in order to have the foundation to achieve transcendence. So that's how it is, Lin Sun understood it completely, and his eyes, which were as deep as the abyss, became bright. It's too late. There are only 2 updates today. I'll continue tomorrow. Chapter 3142. The chaos was boundless, and the river of era was surging and flowing, which was shocking. Lin Sun stood in the void and asked silently in his heart, "Do all the mysteries I sense now come from the power contained in the river diagram?" A familiar thought sounded, "Yes. So, the tribulation of creation realm that I should have ushered in will come here? Yes. If I get through this tribulation, I can also have the foundation to transcend the changing of the era? Yes. How powerful is this tribulation? In the long river of eras, there are 9 supreme cultivation civilizations. The tribulation you're about to undergo is the most powerful tribulation born from these 9 great cultivation civilizations. It's also known as the 9 tribulations of Tao. This tribulation of Tao is divided into 9 levels. When you step into the long river of era, the tribulation will appear. I see. The doubts in Lin Sun's heart were swept away. He knew that the profundities he sensed came from the thoughts within the river diagram. He finally understood that the tribulation of creation he was going to face was completely different from that of other practitioners in the same realm. It was formed by the tribulations born from the 9 supreme civilizations. It was bound to be terrible, but for Lin Sun, it was an irresistible temptation. After this tribulation, he could get through the creation realm and have the foundation to transcend the changing of the era. Taking a deep breath, Lin Sun closed his eyes quietly. Time passed by. When his state of mind, cultivation, qi, and soul were completely adjusted to the peak state, Lin Sun opened his eyes, took a step forward, and stepped into the mighty river of era. Boom! The waves were surging, as if the civilizations of Era were crashing over. It was grand and immeasurable. Just that kind of breath made people feel incomparably small. If it were someone else, his mind would be lost in it in an instant. Lin Sun stood on the rushing river with his hands behind his back. His eyes were clear and his mind was empty. He was like a dominator, looking down at the changing of the era with a calm manner. Just for a moment. Boom. His figure appeared in a strange civilization. Then, a breath of tribulation came, and all the 9 heavens and 10 earths turned into the color of darkness. The heavy tribulation clouds made the time and space distorted and chaotic. Lin Sun raised his head slightly, and a touch of fighting intent appeared in his deep eyes. Boom! Suddenly, a thunderclap that sounded like the beginning of the chaos resounded amidst the dark and oppressive heavens and the earth, and it shook the universe to the point it trembled and shook the surroundings. Soon after, beams of dazzling divine light tore through the darkness and swept out from the depths of the tribulation cloud. Impressively, they were figures that resembled supreme gods. There were divine lotuses that towered into the sky, connected to the 9 heavens, and connected to the 9 hells. Chaotic rain of light flowed down from between the petals and leaves like a waterfall, and its aura was so magnificent that it blotted out the sky and blotted out the sun. There was a divine dark parasol tree that was rooted in the void. Its branches were like paths that led to the myriad of worlds in the universe, and its leaves were like numerous worlds that hung on its branches. There were bronze-colored ants that could hold up the heavens. One after another, the rulers of the cycle of reincarnation arrived. The aura of every single one of them was formidable to an unimaginable extent, and they far surpassed existences that had surpassed the realm of principles. Their entire bodies seethed with the vast aura of calamity and destruction. At the same time, Lin Sun had a mysterious feeling in his heart. This was the 9 spirits' supreme tribulation. It was from the immortal martial era, or in other words, the last era. Every single one of those figures represented a supreme existence in the immortal martial civilization. In other words, this first level of the tribulation represented the supreme tribulation of the immortal martial era that was targeted at experts at the creation realm. Bang! Lin Sun didn't have too much time to think at all, and as soon as the 9 supreme figures that seemed like supreme gods appeared, they attacked Lin Sun. The chaotic divine lotus swayed while boundless chaotic chi descended from it, and it was like a divine chain of order that whipped down towards Lin Sun. The divine dark parasol tree swayed while leaves fell from every single branch, and they transformed into numerous images of worlds that overlapped and smashed down towards Lin Sun. At other places, supreme sword insight surged into appearance and tore through the sky. World-crushing techniques soared through the sky and obliterated the heavens and the earth. Roars that rumbled like thunder shook the sun, moon, mountains, and rivers, and in an instant, Lin Sun's figure was drowned by various terrifying and unimaginable forces. This level of tribulation wasn't just terrifying, it was completely abnormal, and it was like a taboo. In just an instant, Lin Sun suffered a heavy injury, causing his countenance to turn pale, and he was in an extremely sorry state. After all, with his current cultivation realm, he was able to surmount a realm and kill existences at the intermediate stage of the creation realm. Yet now, he'd suffered injuries repeatedly in merely the first level of the tribulation. But in next to no time, Lin Sun steadied his figure, and then he released all the strength he possessed to fight the 10 experts by himself with all his might. He'd forgotten about life and death, forgotten about time, forgotten about everything. Only a strand of surging and burning unyielding battle intent remained in his body. Kill, kill, kill. Lin Sun was completely oblivious to himself, and there were no thoughts in his mind or body. It was even to the extent that he didn't know that it was precisely in such a battle that his great Tao reserves were awakened and released in an unprecedented manner. After an unknown period of time. Bang! The figures of the 9 supreme experts collapsed with a bang. Even this expanse of the heavens and the earth seemed to have been blasted apart and vanished without a trace. In this seemingly empty world, only Lin Sun's lone figure remained, and his entire body was tainted with blood. But his boundlessly terrifying fighting spirit and battle intent seemed like the most dazzling light in the world, and it illuminated the heavens. At this moment, Lin Sun felt that an indescribable transformation was taking place all over his body. His mind, cultivation, soul, and great Tao seemed to have experienced an extreme tempering and baptism in the furnace. The taste of transformation made Lin Sun feel so comfortable that he almost groaned. Then, he found that after experiencing the first 9 spirits' tribulation, his cultivation seemed to have been shattered and reshaped once, and it became stronger and stronger than before. Only by fighting with all my strength can I get a new life-like transformation in the tribulation. This is the magic of this tribulation. Lin Sun was enlightened. The might of the 9 spirits' supreme tribulation was incomparably abnormal, but it was also because of this that one's potential could be completely unearthed, and all the power that one grasped would undergo the most fundamental tempering. Only then would one be able to obtain the most extreme transformation. In other words, anyone who was in this tribulation would be injured, and they would feel as if they were in a furnace that was tempered over and over again. Clatter! Just as Lin Sun felt the changes in his body, the scene in front of him suddenly changed, and he appeared in a new era of civilization. This era was called Shaman, and the most powerful tribulation born in this era was called Shaman's Tribulation, and the tribulation aura it produced was aimed at the physical body of practitioners. Compared with the 9 spirits' tribulation, the power of the Shaman's Tribulation was undoubtedly stronger. In a short period of time, Lin Sun's Taoist body was shattered dozens of times. His flesh and blood splattered, his tendons and bones were broken, and it was a horrible sight. But every time it was shattered, Lin Sun's Taoist body was reshaped. This was the power from the Nirvana ultimacy, and it allowed him to experience the cruelest destruction and reshaping in this tribulation. From the beginning to the end, Lin Sun could only bear it, maintain a little clarity in his mind, and try his best to prevent his consciousness from being drowned by the endless pain. In that case, it undoubtedly meant that he had failed to pass the tribulation. Fortunately, this sort of destruction and reconstruction only took 10 minutes before it ended. Even though it was extremely painful, Lin Sun felt unprecedentedly comfortable when this tribulation ended. The strength emanated by his Taoist body that had experienced countless slashes and remodeling couldn't be mentioned in the same breath as it was in the past. The third tribulation was called the Supreme Martial Tribulation, which came from the martial era. This tribulation was aimed at the fighting will and fighting skills mastered by practitioners. When the tribulation came, it was like all the martial gods came together, and the sky was filled with the figures of the supreme martial artists who were extremely powerful. In this tribulation, Lin Sun was like being in the battlefield of destruction, fighting alone against 100,000 troops, fighting and killing enemies. When the tribulation ended, Lin Sun's fighting will and fighting skills were also tempered to the extreme. The power released by his every move had the momentum to suppress the sky. The fourth tribulation was called the Supreme Martial Tribulation, which came from the illusion era. This tribulation was aimed at the state of mind. Comparatively speaking, it was the easiest for Lin Sun to go through this test, because his state of mind had already been honed to an unprecedented level. He had seen through the falsehood becomes falsehood when it is true. He had sought the truth from the heart, comprehended, making something out of nothing, and had experienced many incredible tests. Even though the power in the tribulation was so terrifying that it could easily disturb the mind of an eternal realm expert, it couldn't affect Lin Sun's state of mind. The fifth tribulation was called the Supreme Martial Tribulation of Soul, which came from the Soul era. This tribulation was aimed at the soul, and it could be called the strongest tribulation in each era. When Lin Sun experienced this tribulation, He also had a feeling that he had a narrow escape from death. It was too horrible. It was like a struggle between life and death. In the end, only a wisp of his consciousness survived. When this tribulation was over, his Dharma spirit was completely remodeled, and his spirit was intertwined with profound laws inside and outside. The sixth tribulation was called the Supreme Martial Tribulation, which came from the Devil era. This tribulation was aimed at a more terrible state of mind. In the Great Tribulation, Lin soon faced tests of good and evil, black and white, right and wrong. Killing one person could save thousands of people. Should he kill or not? Someone once slaughtered a city, but then turned over a new leaf, and later saved the lives of 10 cities. How should he be judged? Similar tests appeared in this tribulation, and they also knocked on Lin Sun's state of mind again and again, and impacted his cognition and judgment of the world. Fortunately, Lin Sun had always adhered to his own good and evil, right and wrong, so his state of mind was not really shaken by these tribulations. When he finally passed this tribulation, his Taoist heart became more clear and firm. The seventh tribulation was called the Great Confucian Tribulation, which came from the Confucian era. From the beginning of the tribulation, the power of the tribulation changed completely. Lin Sun's Taoist heart, cultivation, soul, and the power of the Great Way all began to suffer destructive blows. Because the tribulation was like the struggle of the Great Way. You regarded me as a devil, and I regarded you as a traitor. Such a conflict was completely incompatible with each other. It had nothing to do with hatred, but the level of the Great Way. It was also in this tribulation that Lin Sun felt the real crisis. Chapter 31:43. Tribulation clouds billowed in the sky. When the dazzling thunderbolts fell, they turned into countless dazzling characters of the Great Way. These characters had different shapes and were imprinted with different auras. They were arranged in the void and turned into lines of words that were as sharp as swords. They were beautiful and unfathomable. Their power could be said to be boundlessly terrifying. Words were the carrier of civilization, and scriptures were scriptures that described the profundities of the grand Tao of the heavens and the earth. During the righteous Confucian tribulation, every single word was simply like a calamity capable of obliterating the world, and its lethality far exceeded imagination. Lin Sun's figure was often injured in the battle. His cultivation was seriously threatened and he was in a dangerous situation. When he finally passed the tribulation, Lin Sun's body was broken and his spirit was damaged. He was extremely miserable, but his eyes were incomparably bright. From then on, it allowed his cultivation to undergo a whole new transformation. The eighth tribulation is called the Solitary Buddha Tribulation. It comes from the Buddha era. The ninth tribulation is called the Three Pure Tao Tribulation. It comes from the Tao era. As long as I pass it, I can successfully prove my Tao and have the foundation to transcend the long river of time. Feeling the earth-shaking changes in his body, Lin Sun took a deep breath and was full of expectations. While Lin Sun was passing the tribulation, days passed in the outside world. Wu Yang, Xing Jia, and the other old monsters who had been waiting on Silent Night Ridge were losing their patience. They couldn't wait any longer. There's only one day left before the major divine clans attack. Maybe the enemy army is already on their way. A worried look appeared on Xing Jia's face. It had been 9 days since the major divine clans declared war. Today, the divine city of fortune was cold and desolate. The air was filled with an oppressive atmosphere. "Little guy, why don't you pay a visit to your father?" Someone looked at Lin Fan and suggested. No. Before Lin Fan could speak, Wu Yang stopped him. What if Lin Sun's cultivation is disturbed? What's more, this is the divine city of fortune. Don't forget that even an eternal realm expert will be blocked and bombarded by the rule power of the city. Then we just wait like this. Someone frowned. Is there any other way? Wu Yang also felt helpless. She didn't expect Lin Sun to be so carefree. He had already declared war on the High Sun clan and Jiang clan before coming to Fortune Divine City, but he was still able to concentrate on cultivating in seclusion under such circumstances. His composure was admirable. "Seniors, my father will definitely accept the challenge," Lin Fan couldn't help but say. His handsome face was filled with determination. Everyone couldn't help laughing. Of course, they knew that Lin Sun was not afraid of this battle. What they were worried about was that Lin Sun didn't know that apart from the High Sun clan and the Jiang clan, there were also Eternal Realm experts from the other god clans. The old men had analyzed the situation and found out that there were 39 Eternal Realm experts among the hundreds of eras in the ruins of Fortune. 11 of them were overseen by Creation Realm cultivators. If one were to calculate carefully, there were at least 100 existences in the enemy army that had come this time, and almost 20 existences in the Creation Realm. Among them, the top forces like the High Sun clan and the Jiang clan each had more than 10 experts in the Transcendent Realm and 4 existences in the Creation Realm. Such an army of Eternal Realm experts could easily wipe out any civilization in the ruins of Fortune. Such a lineup was enough to make any Eternal Realm expert restless. If they hadn't known that Lin Sun had single-handedly overturned the Ji clan, Wu Yang and the others probably wouldn't have been able to sit still. Suddenly, the Dark Blood Emperor seemed to sense something. He looked into the distant sky and his expression changed abruptly. "The enemy is here." The old monsters present were all shocked. "Didn't they say they would arrive in 10 days? Someone asked subconsciously. "This only proves that they can't wait to start the war." Wu Yang calmed down. Looking out from the city, in the depths of the distant starry sky, many figures appeared, and they were approaching this place. There were more than 100 people. Each of them had suppressed their aura to the extreme, so they didn't cause any backlash from the rules of heaven and earth. They were like a silent black cloud, sweeping over from the depths of the universe. Leading them were the Creation Realm experts of the High Sun clan, Gao Yanghuai, and the Jiang clan's Creation Realm expert, Jiang Tao. Behind them were a group of Creation Realm experts, about 16 or 17 of them. Further behind them was a mighty and dense group of Transcendent Realm experts. When they were 10,000 feet away from the Divine City of Fortune, they all stopped in their tracks and stood in the void, like gods of the heavens, looking at the Divine City of Fortune from afar. This distance was the safest. Once they got any closer, they would be repelled and bombarded by the power of the Divine City of Fortune. Before the war started, Gao Yanghuai and Jiang Tao would not force their way forward. The starry sky was silent, but the oppressive atmosphere spread like a landslide and a tsunami in every area of this vast starry sky. Whether it was Lin Fan, Su Bai, or the old monsters like Wu Yang, this was the first time they had seen such a powerful lineup. Nearly 20 Creation Realm experts, hundreds of Transcendent Realm experts. Such an eternal-level army could make people feel desperate and helpless no matter where they appeared. In the ruins of Fortune, such a force was equivalent to a supreme master. Wu Yang and the others felt unprecedented pressure, and their expressions were as solemn as water. Even Lin Fan and Su Bai could not calm down at this moment. Even if they had confidence in Lin Sun, they still felt unspeakably nervous and worried when facing such a lineup. In the starry sky, after Gao Yanghuai, Jiang Tao, and the others arrived, they immediately began to lay out their plans. Splash, splash, a total of 9 completely different kinds of divine order power turned into a sky curtain and soared into the sky, spreading like waves of tide. With the Divine City of Fortune as the center, the starry sky in all directions was covered by layers of divine order power. Then, Gao Yanghuai, Jiang Tao, and the other Eternal Realm army no longer suppressed their own aura and suddenly released terrifying and monstrous power. Boom! The starry sky shook and thousands of stars shook. The surging power of the Eternal Realm gathered together and rushed fiercely to the Divine City of Fortune like a stormy wave. Although these powers were all resisted by the power of rules emitted by the divine city of fortune, the heavy destructive aura still made Wu Yang and the others shudder. They were just existences in the realm of transcendent realm, and there were only more than 20 of them. Not to mention facing such an army of eternal realm experts, even if a creation realm expert came, they would not be able to compete. They were even worried about how Lin Sun could resolve such a dilemma alone. It's over. In the divine city of fortune, there were still some bold cultivators who had not left. They had planned to watch the battle, but when they saw this scene, their hands and feet were cold and their scalps were numb. Such a lineup was completely beyond their imagination. Everyone no longer had a glimmer of hope for Lin Sun. They were even worried that the divine city of fortune would be broken, and they would be affected. For a moment, these people were terrified, annoyed, and regretful. They wanted to slap themselves. Why did they have to be brave and choose to stay? They should have left long ago. Where's Lin Sun? Didn't you say that you want to fight with us here? Now that all the clans have arrived, why don't you dare to show yourself? In the starry sky, Gao Yanghui stood proudly, his eyes looking at the divine city of fortune from afar. His voice was like a thunderclap that surged in the starry sky. At this moment, he was complacent, and his face was filled with disdain and coldness. Lin Sun, you probably didn't expect that we would join forces with all the clans in the world to deal with you. That's why you don't dare to show yourself at this moment, right? Jiang Tao laughed. Even a lion uses its full strength to fight a rabbit. Don't think that you can look down on us just because you destroyed the Ji clan. Everyone, do you see that? Lin Sun is so scared that he doesn't dare to show himself. How dare you declare war with such courage? What's the difference between this and courting death? One by one, the creation realm existences spoke, and their voices were simply like layer after layer of thunder that rumbled through the starry sky. Lin Sun, come out and die. Someone couldn't wait any longer and shouted, come out and die. At that moment, hundreds of existences in the law-defying realm shouted together. Their power, like an overwhelming storm, swept across the entire starry sky, causing the void to roar and the stars suspended in the starry sky to explode one by one. If the divine city of fortune had not been covered by the power of rules, blocking the impact of such invisible power, the city would probably have been shattered in this sound. Terrifying, too terrifying. At this moment, the remaining cultivators in the city were terrified to the point of being paralyzed on the ground and out of their wit. Even the expressions of Wu Yang and the others became ugly, and their brows were full of haze. The enemy was too arrogant and seemed to be confident of victory. But they had to admit that such an army of eternal realm experts did indeed have the capital to make anyone despair. Even if they went all out, they might not be able to hold on for a moment. How can we fight this battle? The hearts of these old monsters were so heavy that they couldn't be any heavier. Looking at Lin Fan and Su Bai, they also clenched their hands and looked gloomy. So many existences in the eternal realm had joined forces just to deal with their father, Master Lin Sun. How shameless! Lin Sun, why don't you dare to show yourself? Come out and die. In the starry sky, a creation realm expert with a burly figure like a mountain roared, his aura extremely arrogant. This damned bastard, if it was one-on-one, my father would kill him like killing a chicken. Lin Fan gritted his teeth. Fan, is it worth it to be angry for someone who is about to die? At this moment, an indifferent voice sounded. Everyone was shocked and subconsciously looked back. The closed door of the hall slowly opened, and Lin Sun's tall figure walked out of it. There will be more updates at night. Chapter 3144. Father. Lin Fan looked excited. Su Bai, Wu Yang, and the other old monsters also looked happy. When Lin Sun came out of the closed-door training, they seemed to have found their backbone. Their anxious mood, which had been worried about gains and losses, became much more stable. At this time, Wu Yang pointed to the distance and was about to explain something to Lin Sun. Lin Sun smiled and said, "I've made all of you worry, but I hope you can stay in the city. I alone am enough to deal with these people." With that, he rose into the air and stepped into the void. Wu Yang and the others looked at each other. How could they let Lin Sun fight alone? They all wanted to follow him, but as soon as their figures swept over, they were suppressed by the power of the rules in the city and could not move forward. When they looked at Lin Sun again, his figure had already swept out of the divine city of fortune. "Seniors, I believe that my father will definitely be able to turn the tide." Lin Fan's eyes became firm again. "Let's just wait and watch the show." No matter how reluctant they could only watch from afar at this time. There was no other way. With the oppression of the rules, they could not walk out of the city at all. "He's out." At the same time, in the vast starry sky, Gao Yanghuai, Jiang Tao, and the other eternal realm existences saw Lin Sun and could not help but reveal undisguised killing intent. He dares to stand out at this moment. His courage is not bad. When we kill him later, we can give him a quick death. Someone said leisurely. Hee, that depends on whether he's willing to die a quick death. Someone chuckled. Everyone, don't be careless. This child once destroyed the Ji clan of the Protoss. Although his cultivation is only at the great perfection of the rules realm, he already has the foundation to kill a creation realm. He can't be underestimated. Someone reminded solemnly. What's there to be afraid of? We have 19 mighty figures of creation realm among us. Each of them has risen in countless years of bloody killing. In addition, there are 9 divine orders and hundreds of people who have reached the realm of law-defying. Such a force can sweep the world. How can we not take down Lin Sun? Someone laughed disapprovingly. This also caused a lot of echoing laughter. In short, they clearly knew that Lin Sun's combat power was heaven-defying, but they were full of absolute confidence in the power they possessed. Lin Sun's figure stopped in front of the Fortune Divine City. This place was just at the edge of the Fortune Divine City's territory. When they saw this scene, they burst into laughter again. They seemed to think that Lin Sun's action was a cowardly one, and it was very likely that he was ready to escape into the Divine City of Fortune if the situation went south. Lin Sun, however, looked calm and composed. Only his eyes were deep and cold. He swept his gaze across the audience and suddenly shook his head. Although there are quite a few people who have come to die, most of them are repulsive trash who can't even withstand a single blow. To think that I've prepared for so long, but it's all for naught. Lin Sun's voice was very light. But like a clap of thunder, it exploded in everyone's ears in an instant. Everyone was stunned and didn't want to believe that Lin Sun dared to laugh at such a horrible lineup. Is this guy crazy? All the cultivators in Fortune Divine City had the same thought, and all of them were stunned. Lin Fan and Su Bai only felt their blood boiling and their hearts surging. Lin Sun's arrogant attitude at this moment made them admire him from the bottom of their hearts. As for the old monsters like Wu Yang, their expressions became strange, and their hearts were in turmoil. The world was so big, but who dared to be like Lin Sun and despise these powerful figures who had already stood on the eternal great way? You're courting death. Arrogant. Ha ha, he's a man who's about to die. How dare he think of us as repulsive trash? I haven't heard such a joke for a long time since I attained the eternal way. Gao Yanghuai, Jiang Tao, and the others all sneered. Many people scolded, but more people stared coldly at Lin Sun as if he was an ant that was about to be crushed to death. He's going to die anyway, so it's fine to let him say a few more words before he dies. A woman covered her mouth and chuckled. Lin Sun, this is the ruins of fortune. Not only are we here, but the supreme ruler behind the calamity of the era is also watching in the dark. Do you still think that the divine city of fortune can protect you? Jiang Tao's eyes were cold. In his opinion, Lin Sun dared to be so arrogant because he relied on his identity as the lord of the divine city of fortune. But they had long been prepared for this. For example, the 9 divine level orders they brought this time, as well as the power possessed by the eternal realm existences, were more than enough to deal with everything. I only know that those who serve as dogs for the mastermind are destined to not have a good ending. The Ji clan is the best proof. Lin Sun said indifferently. Kill him. Gao Yanghuai could no longer suppress the killing intent in his heart, and his voice was cold as he gave the order. Boom. The 9 divine level orders that covered the entire starry sky roared at once, and all kinds of dazzling and terrifying torrents of order descended on Lin Sun. This was not to kill Lin Sun, but to cut off his escape route. At the same time, over 100 eternal figures in the transcendent realm formed a formation and attacked with all their might. They were all super experts who had experienced hundreds of battles and killed countless people. No matter how much they despised Lin Sun, they would not hold back at all. They would only use their strongest power to crush Lin Sun into pieces. Boom! How terrifying was the power of hundreds of eternal figures in the law-transgressing realm. Coupled with the fact that they attacked with all their strength, the power was so strong that the starry sky instantly collapsed violently. If it were not for the 9 divine level orders covering it, this attack alone could have completely destroyed the starry sky. The terrifying eternal power converged into a torrent, like a mighty Milky Way, and smashed down from the sky. All kinds of supreme divine powers and densely packed eternal Tao soldiers filled it, dazzling and dazzling. With endless terrifying power of destruction, it rushed towards Lin Sun alone. There was no way to dodge it. In the face of this earth-shattering attack, the entire divine city of fortune fell silent. Everyone's heart tightened as they watched this scene. Many people did not even dare to look, lest they see the scene of Lin Sun being mercilessly killed. Father! Lin Fan wanted to call out, but he could not. His heart seemed to be clenched tightly. But the next moment, Lin Sun waved his sleeve, and as if sweeping away dust, the mighty torrent of power, the terrifying blow that was enough to crush the starry sky into ashes, disappeared into thin air. The eternal Tao soldiers were shaken to the point of wailing and trembling as they flew backward. How is this possible? The hundreds of existences in the law-transgressing realm widened their eyes, unable to believe the scene in front of them. Even Gao Yanghuai, Jiang Tao, and the other creation realm experts, who were ready to take advantage of the opportunity to attack, frowned slightly, and their eyes showed shock. Again, Jiang Tao shouted, his voice like thunder. Hundreds of eternal figures in the law-transgressing realm joined forces again, and endless power slammed down, but they still rushed in front of Lin Sun and disappeared like a breeze. Not even a strand of Lin Sun's hair was blown. This time, not only Gao Yanghuai, Jiang Tao, and the others, but also the cultivators in the divine city of fortune, as well as Lin Fan, Su Bai and Wuyang, were stunned. Too weak. Lin Sun finally spoke. These 3 words were like the greatest humiliation in the world, causing the expressions of Gao Yanghuai and the others to become ugly. It must be the rule power of the divine city of fortune that protects him. An old man in a gray robe deduced. Ignorant. Lin Sun laughed, stepped forward, and left the area covered by the rule power of the divine city of fortune. Poof! Then, under the shocked gaze of many, Lin Sun casually pointed out with a finger. The old man in a gray robe, an eternal existence with the great perfection of the law-transgressing realm, was directly blown up by Lin Sun. Countless scarlet blood splattered in the void. From beginning to end, he had no time to dodge or resist. Bastard! Quick, let's attack together and block his escape route. We must not let him escape back to the divine city of fortune. Gao Yanghuai shouted. Kill! In the starry sky, the 9 divine orders boiled and tumbled, and terrifying Tao light fell, turning into layers of power, completely sealing Lin Sun's escape route. At the same time, hundreds of law-transgressing realm existences formed a battle formation and attacked with all their might. As for creation existences like Gao Yanghuai and Jiang Tao, they stood guard in the surroundings, and their auras rumbled as they attacked Lin Sun from afar. In just an instant, the starry sky seemed to have completely collapsed, and it fell into chaos. It was a scene of destruction, turmoil, and doomsday. That scene was too terrifying. In the face of such an attack, Lin Sun said indifferently, "Now, I will send all of you on your way." His figure was still reverberating, and his aura was suddenly released. It continued to rise, and his tall figure seemed to have become boundlessly tall. Swoosh! He directly leaped up and transformed into a shocking ray of light, piercing into the battle formation formed by the hundreds of law-transgressing realm existences. He did not rely on any magic power, nor did he use any divine ability or Tao technique. He purely relied on his physical body, and he was like a white rainbow piercing through the sky. From afar, Lin Sun's figure was like an extremely sharp divine sword, piercing into the enemy army. Bang! 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 More than a dozen law-transgressing realm existences were hit by Lin Sun's figure. Their sturdy eternal Tao bodies could not withstand the impact at all, and even their divine souls exploded with a loud bang. Blood sprayed all over the sky. As Lin Sun's figure charged forward, no matter what kind of peerless magic powers or eternal Tao soldiers they were unable to break through the defensive power around him. Under such circumstances, the power that Lin Sun released spread out, creating a bloody scene along the way. The law-transgressing realm existences could not dodge in time and were directly crushed, like bloody bubbles exploding in the void. They were so fragile, so vulnerable. When Lin Sun's figure returned, the hundreds of law-transgressing realm existences were already scattered by the impact, and only a few more than 30 people were left. The rest had been crushed into blood, their bodies and souls destroyed, and they died violently. Gao Yanghuai, Jiang Tao, and the other creation existences were so shocked that they revealed looks of horror. Wu Yang and the others, as well as Lin Fan and Su Bai, also widened their eyes, astonishment and shock written all over their faces. As for those cultivators in Divine Creation City, all of them were stunned on the spot, and they were completely stunned. At that moment, heaven and earth trembled, and all things fell silent. Only Lin Sun's figure was left standing proudly in the void, untainted by even a speck of dust, like a god descending to the world. Chapter 31:45. What was a horizontal push? What Lin Sun was showing now was the power of a horizontal push. When hundreds of eternal existences in the law-defying realm formed a battle formation, it was like an iron curtain covering the sky. However, more than half of them were wiped out by Lin Sun's charge. Dozens of them were smashed in the air, as fragile as bubbles. Broken limbs, blood, and scales were scattered all over the sky. Some of them were further away, and were only swept by the power of Lin Sun tearing through the sky. However, half of their bodies were smashed into pieces as if they had been slashed by a heavenly sword. They howled and retreated in panic, their faces full of fear. Just the power of an eternal Tao body is so terrifying? These existences in the law-defying realm were all existences who had dominated an era of civilization. With their sharp eyes, they could easily tell that Lin Sun had not used any spells or magical powers. He had only displayed the power of his physical body. Because of this, they were even more afraid. In the end, only 30 or so people in the law-defying realm survived, but they were all pale with fear. Compared to the terror and fear of the law-defying figures, the creature-level existences were in disbelief. Gao Yanghuai, Jiang Tao, and the other 19 creation realm existences had been watching from afar, bombarding Lin Sun from a distance. However, all their attacks had failed to stop Lin Sun's killing. Too fast. When they came to their senses, they saw the bloody scenes of death spread across the starry sky. It was so stimulating that their hearts trembled, unable to accept it. In fact, all the experts who saw this scene were filled with shock. The strength Lin Sun had shown was too powerful and incredible. It was far beyond their understanding of the law-defying realm. No matter how heaven-defying a law-defying expert was, it was already rare for him to be able to suppress 7 or 8 people of the same level. However, Lin Sun had killed his peers as easily as slaughtering chickens and dogs. He had even killed dozens of existences in the law-defying realm with a single collision. They did not even dare to imagine it. Father is so strong. Lin Fan felt a little dizzy and was tongue-tied. Master, He Su Bai was so shocked that he could not speak. Wuyang, Xingjia, Long Xiang, and the other old monsters also widened their eyes in shock. They looked at the bloody scene in the distance in disbelief. Looking at Lin Sun's godlike figure, their hearts surged. Strong. Too strong. The battle had just begun, but Lin Sun had already shown his invincible power. As for the cultivators in the Fortune Divine City, their minds were completely blank, and they were dumbstruck. Previously, the High Sun clan and the Jiang clan had led the eternal realm existences of the major clans in the world. They had come in a mighty manner, and their divine might had filled the starry sky, causing everyone to feel despair and helplessness. But now everything was being overturned. Something's wrong. Suddenly, the exclamation of a creation realm existence resounded in the starry sky. This fellow seems to have already attained the creation realm. What? Gao Yanghuai, Jiang Tao, and the others stiffened, and they carefully sized up Lin Sun. Instantly, they noticed that the aura suffused out of Lin Sun's body was extremely obscure and deep like an abyss, and they were actually unable to see through it. You have good eyesight. Lin Sun spoke indifferently. As he spoke, his aura suddenly changed, and it actually rose explosively to an inconceivable state, causing the starry sky to tremble and wail. In the sky, the power of the 9 divine steps suffered a huge impact and began to churn violently. Damn it! How could this be? Isn't the opportunity to attain Tao validation and break through long before the calamity of an era arrives? Moreover, this is the ruins of creation. The eternal Tao tribulation triggered when one attains Tao validation, and the creation realm will definitely be sensed by us. But why didn't there even a trace of it before? At this instant, the expressions of Gao Yanghuai, Jiang Tao, and the other creation realm existences completely changed. The movement caused by an eternal realm existence's Tao validation and tribulation transcendence was so huge that it was enough to affect the turbulence of every starry sky territory in the ruins of creation. But before this, none of them had sensed any signs of tribulation transcendence. It had never crossed their minds that an expert in the transcendent realm like Lin Sun had already quietly attained Tao validation and the creation realm. All of this had caught them off guard. Looking at the remaining 30 or so eternal realm existences in the transcendent realm, each of their faces was ashen, and their hearts were filled with bitterness and lingering fear. They finally understood. No wonder Lin Sun was so powerful. Turned out that he had attained Tao validation and the creation realm. With such monstrous power, he could naturally easily sweep away the transcendent realm existences like them. And Lin Sun was not someone ordinary creation realm existences could compare to. Back when he was at the great perfection realm of transcendent realm, he could destroy the God Clan's G clan by himself, kill 3 creation realm existences, and annihilate a group of transcendent realm experts. Not to mention now. Creation realm. At this moment, Wu Yang and the others also came to a realization. The shock in their hearts was simply indescribable. It was only now that they understood why Lin Sun had been in seclusion for the past few days. It was clearly to attain Tao validation and the creation realm. Creation realm. In the ruins of creation where boundless realm existences did not exist, it was already the most supreme existence. How could they not be shocked by this? In fact, just like Gao Yanghuai and the others, they could not imagine how Lin Sun had seized the opportunity to attain Tao validation and tribulation transcendence in the period before the era calamity arrived. And why did it not cause the slightest commotion from beginning to end? This was too surprising and inconceivable. At this moment, Lin Sun raised his head to look at the sky and said, "Right now, what I really need to be afraid of is not you, but the mastermind behind this era calamity. But now it seems that your actions this time did not seem to have received the help of this mastermind." His words were casual, but it made the expressions of Gao Yanghuai and the others even more unsightly. The Supreme Ruler is like the Great Way, omnipresent. How can you slander him? Jiang Tao shouted. Is that so? I'd like to see if the Supreme Ruler you speak of will appear after I slaughter you all. Lin Sun walked forward with his hands behind his back, his eyes blazing like torches. The terrifying creation realm pressure suddenly spread out. Attack together! Gao Yanghuai roared angrily. Once they retreated today, the God clan behind them would follow in the footsteps of the Ji clan. This was something that none of them could accept. Only by killing Lin Sun here and now could they get rid of this great trouble once and for all. Kill! Jiang Tao and the other creation realm existences all moved out. Each of their bodies was steaming with terrifying power as they attacked Lin Sun together. Boom! The sky was dark and the earth was dark, collapsing like chaos. The power grasped by the creation realm was naturally far from what the exceeding rules realm could compare with. They could easily release all kinds of rule power, collapse the sky, and destroy a world. They were incomparably powerful. These 19 creation realm existences were all the creation realm powerhouses of the various god clans in the ruins of fate. Each of them had experienced countless ups and downs before rising, and the divine powers and means they had mastered could be said to be the best in the world. At this moment, when they attacked together, it was really no different from a group of supreme rulers in the starry sky. In comparison, the exceeding rules realm existences were completely dim and insignificant. Apart from that, the 9 divine steps were also controlled by these creation realm existences, and they attacked Lin Sun together. Boom! The mighty power of the creation realm spread out. Some turned into flaming divine swords that were as brilliant as the sun, some turned into ancient divine mountains that supported a vast world, some turned into divine birds with wings that could tear apart the 9 heavens, and some, apart from these supreme divine powers, there were also eternal Tao weapons with terrifying power, whips, hammers, rulers, swords, seals, pagodas, and so on. Every single treasure glowed brilliantly, and they gave rise to boundless world-shocking phenomena. Under such a siege, it was enough to make any creation realm existence tremble in fear and despair. But in the face of such a siege, Lin Sun's expression remained calm. He stepped forward and stretched out his hand to grab. Boom! A huge hand that seemed to cover the sky appeared out of thin air, as if a chaotic abyss had descended to the world, surging with obscure and mysterious rule power. When this huge hand appeared, an indescribable aura of destruction was released along with it, tearing apart the power of the 9 divine steps in the sky, causing it to collapse like a tide, and the void to collapse and crack like a piece of paper. It gave people the feeling that such a huge hand could disturb the starry sky and crush all the phenomena in the world. When this huge hand slapped down, boom! How terrifying was the torrent of power released by the joint forces of 19 creation realm existences. But at this moment it was forcefully slapped apart by this palm, causing an endless rain of light to burst out. All kinds of divine powers were destroyed in the explosion, and all kinds of eternal Tao weapons were shaken to the point of wailing and buzzing as they flew backward. A single slap had actually broken the offensive means of 19 creation realm existences. The expressions of Gao Yanghuai and the others changed, and all of them staggered from the impact of the huge hand. Their chi and blood surged, and their expressions were extremely solemn. Too strong. Lin Sun, who had reached the creation realm, was simply a heaven-defying monster that couldn't be measured by common sense. And this slap also caused a layer of goosebumps to arise all over Wu Yang and the others, and they were completely shocked. One person fought against 19 creation realm existences alone, and there was no lack of ruthless figures at the perfection realm among them, but Lin Sun still seemed so powerful and domineering. Kill! The eyes of Gao Yanghuai and the others turned red, and they went all out. They went all out and attacked again without holding back. All of them knew that in the ruins of creation, if even they, the creation realm existences, couldn't destroy Lin Sun, then all the divine clans in the world would definitely be trampled under Lin Sun's feet. This was something none of them could accept. Ants trying to shake a tree is just a joke. Lin Sun stepped forward in a cold and indifferent voice. Boom, boom, boom. With every step Lin Sun took, the starry sky trembled, and indescribably terrifying power spread from his tall figure, as if a supreme being of all heavens was going out. Those supreme divine powers and eternal Tao weapons that attacked him were all defeated by a wave of his hand, and they couldn't hurt a hair of his at all. On the contrary, under the pressure of his power, those opponents were like small boats that were constantly rocking in stormy waves, and their siege was constantly dispersed. The invincible power made Lin Sun become the most dazzling light on the battlefield, showing the supreme demeanor of overwhelming all others and dominating the starry sky. In contrast, the power of Gao Yanghuai and the other 19 creation realm existences was completely suppressed by Lin Sun. The superior was obvious. Chapter 3146. In the creation realm, one could refine the rules of heaven and earth for his own use. He had the magical power to turn stone into gold, just like the legendary creator. In the River of Epochs located in the original power of the Ruins of Fortune, Lin Sun passed the 9 tribulations of Tao in one fell swoop. Not only did he successfully reach the creation realm, but he also had the potential to transcend the changing of eras. The power he mastered was completely different from those in the same realm, and he was no longer comparable to those in the same realm. Under such circumstances, it was completely effortless for him to kill those who exceeded the rules realm, and he was destined to be unstoppable. And now, it was the same in the face of the 19 creation realm. After all, this was already a battle of the same realm. With Lin Sun's cultivation and foundation, he could already kill those in the middle stage of the creation realm when he exceeded the rules realm, let alone now that he was already in the creation realm. Therefore, as soon as the battle began, Lin Sun was already in a strong state. His divine power was vast and overwhelming, and he revealed his unparalleled fighting power. Boom! A pagoda made of white bones came crashing down from the sky. The power of rules emerged around the pagoda, turning into a mountain of corpses, a sea of blood and a hellish cave, oppressing the void into disorder. Lin Sun just slapped out his palm, and the white bone pagoda flew out with a bang, and many cracks appeared on its surface. At the same time, a sword chi emerged from Lin Sun's body and flashed in the void. Puff! The head of the creation realm who controlled the white bone pagoda was chopped off, and blood sprayed high. Fortunately, his spirit dodged in time and was not obliterated. Boom! The power released from Lin Sun's body also defeated the attacks coming from all directions, and they couldn't hurt him at all. Kill! A black-robed man roared fiercely. As if burning his own cultivation, he turned into a bloody rainbow and made a desperate attack. But the terrifying attack he exerted with all his might didn't even get within 30 meters of Lin Sun's body. It was like hitting an iron wall and instantly turned into powder. And Lin Sun took the opportunity to step forward. Boom! Hundreds of millions of obscure light raindrops interweaved into a formation of rules in front of him, crushing the black-robed man's figure on the spot. Before his body and primordial spirit could disperse, they were swept away by Lin Sun's power. A creation realm existence was so easily suppressed. This scene of death caused Gao Yanghuai, Jiang Tao, and the others to shiver all over. How can he be so powerful? Someone let out a furious roar. From the beginning of the battle to the present, Lin Sun had shown an extremely strong posture. Even if they joined forces, they couldn't suppress him at all. On the contrary, as the battle went on, Lin Sun alone suppressed all their attacks. Who could accept this? It should be known that these creation realm existences had gone through countless years of ups and downs. But now they joined forces but didn't make any progress. Instead, Lin Sun took the opportunity to kill one of them. This was undoubtedly too terrifying. Everyone, we have no way out. Let's fight him to the death. A silver-robed woman said coldly. She controlled a divine-level order with her delicate hand and charged towards Lin Sun. Her power was extremely powerful, and the power that lingered around her could easily crush existences that exceeded the realm of enlightenment. But in front of Lin Sun, she seemed to be unable to bear it. In just an instant, she was easily defeated by Lin Sun and retreated with injuries. If it weren't for the others restraining her, she was bound to be unable to escape. At this moment, Lin Sun was truly too strong. He seemed to be invincible and unstoppable. Not long after, swoosh, Lin Sun's palm and fingers were like blades that cut through the sky. A peerlessly dazzling light flashed, and a creation realm existence's body was cut into two at the waist. Even his primordial spirit didn't have time to escape before it died on the spot. And in the following battle, creation realm existences were killed one after another. Blood suffused the starry sky that had collapsed and seemed to be in chaos. Tao sounds rumbled everywhere, and divine radiance swept through. It was like a scene of purgatory where the end of the world was coming. Lin Sun's figure moved about freely. Even powerful existences like creation realm existences couldn't stop this level of slaughter at all. Furious roars, screams, scarlet blood and death intertwined, outlining a bloody picture that was enough to shock the ages. In the divine city of fortune, Wu Yang and the others felt cold in their hands and feet. Their Taoist heart trembled, and they all stood there blankly as if they had forgotten to breathe. This was not a battle of one against many. It was clearly a massacre that belonged to Lin Sun alone. Kill! The roar was like thunder, resounding through the starry sky. Gao Yonghui, Jiang Tao and the others' eyes were bloodshot. They seemed to have gone crazy and were fighting desperately without regard for their lives. But it was still in vain. They couldn't shake Lin Sun at all. On the contrary, their companions around them were dying one by one. All of this stimulated them to the point that their liver and gallbladder were torn apart. It wasn't that they didn't have a trump card in their hands, but even if they used it, it was resolved by Lin Sun in an incomparably strong manner. It didn't play much role at all. In next to no time, only 9 of the 19 creation realm existences remained, and there were even a few amongst them that were heavily injured. Gao Yonghui, Jiang Tao and the others hadn't given up yet. The remaining more than 30 existences in the law-exceeding realm were already panic-stricken and their fighting spirit had collapsed. Let's run away. No one in the ruins of fortune is a match for Lin Sun at all. Let's go. These existences in the law-exceeding realm were panic-stricken and fled frantically. They were the first to collapse. Do you really think I'll let you small fries get away? Lin Sun waved his sleeve, and a series of divine-level orders rose into the sky and blocked the starry sky. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At the same time, the 4 Tao forms appeared and attacked these existences in the law-exceeding realm. Each of the 4 Tao forms was no weaker than Lin Sun himself. When they attacked together, their speed and power were far greater than those in the law-exceeding realm. As a result, screams of terror and curses of anger soon rang out. In just a few blinks of an eye, more than 30 existences in the law-exceeding realm of Eternal Realm were wiped out. None of them were spared. In the face of such a scene, Gao Yonghui, Jiang Tao and the others, the remaining creation realm existences who were still resisting, felt a wave of sadness in their hearts. It was over. The situation was hopeless. Previously, they had united all the Eternal Realm existences in the world. When they first arrived, they didn't take Lin Sun seriously at all. They even threatened to ask Lin Sun to come out and accept his death. But now there was only despair and helplessness left in their hearts. No one could have imagined that Lin Sun would be in the creation realm. No one could have imagined that Lin Sun's combat power had reached such a level. The battle continued. Lin Sun was destined not to hold back. With the 4 Tao forms joining the battle, the enemy's defeat accelerated a lot. Puff, puff, puff. One by one, the creation realm existences died in the starry sky. Before they died, their primordial spirits and bodies were taken away by Lin Sun. All of them ended up in a miserable state. In the end, only Gao Yanghuai was left. His face was covered in blood and his black hair was disheveled. He roared, "Lin Sun, the calamity of the era is coming. You can't escape death. Just you wait." Boom! Before he finished speaking, Lin Sun had already smashed his body into pieces with a cold palm. At this point, all the eternal realm existences who came together to invade the city were wiped out by Lin Sun alone. However, before the people in the creation divine city could recover from the deep shock, suddenly, a terrifying tribulation light appeared out of thin air, with incomparably powerful and far superior power. Like a sword, it came straight at Lin Sun when he was the most relaxed. What's going on? At that moment, countless people were shocked. That ray of tribulation light was extremely obscure and deep, and it carried a strange and ominous aura. As soon as it appeared, this vast expanse of the starry sky suddenly darkened, and the layers of divine rank order energy that covered the starry sky were suppressed and were utterly unable to move. And at the moment when no one could react, the tribulation light instantly crossed the boundless space-time and bombarded Lin Sun, directly tearing his body apart. Lin Sun! Father! Master! At that moment, Wuyang, Lin Fan, and Su Bai all cried out involuntarily, and their expressions changed completely. No one expected that when Lin Sun was invincible and crushed all the eternal realm existences, there would be such a sudden change. But the next moment, Lin Sun's figure appeared out of thin air hundreds of meters away. The tribulation light that had shattered before was just an afterimage left by his fast-moving speed. Wuyang, Lin Fan, Su Bai, and the others could not help but breathe a sigh of relief, but soon, they all looked at the depths of the starry sky in surprise. At the same time, a dignified look appeared on Lin Sun's face. In the depths of the starry sky, a gray tribulation cloud emerged, full of strange and ominous aura. Although it was silent, it made people shudder. The tribulation light before came from the depths of this gray tribulation cloud. Even Lin Sun felt a chill in his body, as if he was locked by an invisible gaze from a distance, making him uncomfortable all over. Is it the great silence fatal tribulation? As soon as this thought came to Lin Sun's mind, he saw, the tribulation cloud in the depths of the starry sky trembled violently, and then hundreds of invisible and colorless tribulation light swept out, directly tearing the space-time and rushing toward Lin Sun. Boom! Almost instinctively, Lin Sun operated his cultivation to the extreme to an unprecedented level, and it simply burst out like a boiling furnace. Break! Lin Sun shouted, and hundreds of millions of sword chi branded with the profound meaning of nirvana whistled out, blooming with a boundless light curtain, and collided with the tribulation light. After that, rumbling sounds of collisions that were dense like thunderclaps resounded, and it caused numerous rifts to appear in that expanse of the starry sky, causing it to seem like a shattered canvas. In the end, although Lin Sun blocked the hundreds of tribulation light, he was struck to the point that his blood and chi were in turmoil, his figure staggered, and his expression became gloomy. He felt a familiar aura from the tribulation light, and it was exactly the same as the trace of primordial law contained in the primordial stone statue that he had refined. There was no doubt that the culprit behind the calamity of the era had made a move. Moreover, the culprit didn't borrow the power of others this time, but directly evolved into a great tribulation, appeared in the depths of the starry sky, and targeted him. Today, I will continue to add chapters and ask for monthly vote. Chapter 31:47. In the divine city of fortune, Wu Yang and the others felt their hands and feet go cold. The great desolation calamity. No one had expected that after Lin Sun had just won an unprecedented victory, such a killing tribulation would suddenly come. Which eternal realm didn't know about the power of this calamity? It could be said that the great desolation calamity was the most feared in the eternal realm. During the destruction of civilizations in the past eras, this calamity had killed countless peerless eternal realm existences. Lin Sun, come back! Xing Jia shouted immediately, his voice echoing through the starry sky. This was the divine city of fortune, enough to avoid the great desolation calamity. In the starry sky, Lin Sun shook his head and said, "Don't panic, everyone. I want to see how powerful this calamity is." His eyes were deep, revealing a hint of blazing fighting spirit. A long time ago, he had heard all kinds of rumors about the great desolation calamity. Even supreme existences like the eternal night divine emperor had been severely injured by this calamity. The only thing that puzzled Lin Sun was the relationship between the power of the great desolation calamity and the mastermind. Because according to common sense, if this calamity was completely controlled by the mastermind, it would have been a piece of cake for the mastermind to kill him in the past. There was no need to instruct the Zen sect, the voodoo cult, and the Ninth Heaven's Eternal God clan to attack him. There was also no need for the various divine clans in the ruins of fortune to deal with him. But it didn't make sense to say that the great desolation calamity wasn't controlled by the mastermind. Because previously, he had clearly felt the aura of the primordial law from the tribulation light. And this was what puzzled Lin Sun the most. This kid, knowing Lin Sun's plan, Wu Yang and the others felt their hearts clench. At this time, he still wanted to compete with the great desolation calamity? One should know that Lin Sun had just reached the creation realm. Without reaching the great perfection of this realm, he was destined to have no chance of stepping into the boundless realm. And it was obvious that Lin Sun insisted on doing this at this moment, as he said, to test the power of the great desolation calamity. This move was too bold, no different from throwing his life away. How could Wu Yang and the others not worry? Lin Bai and Su Bai glanced at each other, feeling somewhat indescribable excitement. Lin Sun's spirit at the moment shocked and even made them admire him. Perhaps it was only with such boldness that Father, Master, was able to achieve the great Tao he had today? Suddenly, in the gray tribulation cloud in the depths of the starry sky, a long saber condensed by tribulation light suddenly emerged. It flashed in the air and moved across time and space, abruptly chopping at Lin Sun. It was too fast. In the blink of an eye, it was already within reach. The saber was suffused with a strange and ominous aura, and the blade was gray and hazy, causing one's heart to palpitate. Clang! At this critical moment, the abyssal sword cauldron appeared and blocked the saber that was slashing down. Rays of light burst out and rumbled like thunder. The long saber dispersed, while the abyssal sword cauldron was sent flying. Unexpectedly, the abyssal sword cauldron remained unscathed under the attack of such a terrifying tribulation blade. Wu Yang and the rest were stunned. They didn't know that the abyssal sword cauldron, like Lin Sun, had been destroyed and reshaped during the 9 Tao tribulations in the River of Epoch. It was completely different from before. Now, the cauldron was already connected with Lin Sun's heart, and its whole body was engraved with the power of the great Tao law of nirvana. Quantity. Lin Sun recalled the abyssal sword cauldron and stood in the void. Although his expression was solemn, his state of mind had calmed down a lot. Soon, the depths of the gray tribulation cloud tumbled, and tribulation weapons swept out one after another. There were sabers, spears, swords, halberds, ancient seals, pagodas, and so on. All of them were filled with a strange and ominous aura and were extremely powerful. That kind of killing power could easily kill creation realm figures like Gao Yanghuai and Jiang Tao. Lin Sun didn't dare to be careless and fought with all his strength. The power he released was far from what he had used to kill Gao Yanghuai and the others. Boom, boom, boom. In the starry sky, Lin Sun's figure shone like a god. The abyssal sword cauldron swept across the sky, blocking the tribulation light in front of him and exploding. It was also at this time that Wu Yang and the others finally realized how heaven-defying Lin Sun's extreme combat power was after he stepped into the creation realm. When he killed Gao Yanghuai and Jiang Tao before, he obviously didn't use his full strength, and it was only now that he really revealed his cultivation. After Lin Sun blocked the last tribulation weapon, suddenly, a voice sounded from the depths of the gray tribulation cloud. "Hey!" The voice was very old, full of indifference and ruthlessness. It was just a voice, but it was like a thunderbolt that shattered the ages, shaking the starry sky and making it tremble and wail. Wu Yang and the others' eyes went dark, and they only felt that their minds were showing signs of being shocked. They couldn't help but be shocked. They immediately ran their power to protect themselves, Lin Fan and Su Bai. It should be known that this was the divine city of creation, which was covered by the rules of creation, but the voice could still produce such terrible power. Who wouldn't be shocked? Sure enough, you're a heretic that can't be tolerated in the world. Accompanied by the ancient indifferent voice, a figure condensed from the depths of the tribulation cloud and walked out step by step. He was shrouded in a ball of golden light and shadow, and countless golden rules circulated around him. He was bright like a sun that tore through the eternal night. Through the light, people could only see a pair of indifferent and cold silver eyes, and a layer of armor that seemed to be made of immortal gold covering his body. As soon as he appeared, incomparably terrifying power fluctuations swept across the starry sky like stormy waves, like an ancient divine mountain pressing down. Every expert who saw this scene felt like their liver was torn apart, and their minds were shaken. At the same time, rolling tribulation light fell from his bright and dazzling figure, and the layers of divine rules that originally covered the starry sky were now like decorations, completely suppressed. Terrifying, too terrifying. An aura that far exceeds the realm of creation. Is he the mastermind behind the calamity of the era? Everyone was shocked. Wu Yang, Xing Jia, Long Xiang, and the other old monsters' eyes burst with light. Their skin tightened to the extreme, and their cultivation surged wildly as they desperately resisted this power. And the cultivators who had been distributed in the divine city of creation all collapsed to the ground at this moment, and their vitality faded away like flowing water. His mind had actually been forcefully shattered by that terrifying might, causing him to die. The golden figure stood in the void like a supreme ruler. He didn't even make a move, but the power alone was enough to prove how terrifying his power was. Hand over the ultimacy of nirvana in you and abolish your cultivation, and I can spare your life on behalf of his Lord. The golden figure spoke in an ancient, indifferent, and superior tone, as if he was giving alms. The voice resounded through the universe, oppressive and oppressive. At this time, Lin Sun's expression was unusually solemn. Although he could resist the poison released by the opponent, although he could resist the impact of the pressure released by the golden figure, he felt an unprecedented pressure that made every inch of his skin feel as if it was being torn apart. But he still keenly captured some words from the other's words. His Lord. You're not the mastermind behind the calamity of the era? Lin Sun frowned. The other party didn't make a move immediately, so he wouldn't act rashly at this moment. It would be better if he could figure out the other party's background. A creature that walked out of the great silence, lifeless calamity, was incredible in itself. Mastermind behind the scenes? The golden figure was obviously displeased with this title. My lord wields the power to topple an era. How can you slander him? Ignorance is not a crime. I won't argue with you this time. It seemed to be acknowledging Lin Sun. But the words were filled with the arrogance of a superior, as if he was an ant on the ground. So you're just serving the mastermind behind the scenes. Lin Sun sighed softly, a little disappointed. He originally thought that the mastermind behind the scenes had shown his power, but now it seemed that this wasn't the case. The golden figure kept calling him Lord, so how could it be the mastermind behind the scenes? It's the dream of any eternal being to serve the Lord. The golden figure said, looking at Lin Sun, with a hint of appreciation in his tone, "You're very good. You can resist the killing power of the great silence calamity I borrowed, and you have the profound meaning of nirvana. If you're willing to surrender, you're destined to become a destiny apostle like me in the future." Lin Sun's eyes were filled with surprise. It turned out that this guy borrowed part of the power of the great silence calamity. And he called himself a destiny apostle. Did it mean that all the characters who served the mastermind behind the scenes could be called destiny apostles? Destiny? How arrogant! At this moment, Lin Sun was a little excited in his heart. He realized that if he could capture the golden figure today, he might be able to force out information about the mastermind behind the scenes. It was very likely that the identity of the mastermind behind the scenes would be revealed. Seeing that Lin Sun was silent, the golden figure in the distance said in a proud tone, "Young man, you're lucky to be recognized by me. Now kneel down, offer the profound meaning of nirvana, and swear loyalty to me. I'll give you supreme glory." He looked down on Lin Sun and asked him to kneel down and beg for mercy, as if it was a gift. Lin Sun couldn't help but sneer. "Who do you think you are? You're just a dog for the mastermind behind the scenes. How dare you ask me to kneel down?" The golden figure was slightly angry. He just snorted slightly, but the whole starry sky was shaking. The endless void burst like glass fragments, and startling space-time cracks appeared. Just his voice is so terrifying. If he really makes a move, I'm afraid this starry sky won't be able to withstand a blow. This self-proclaimed mandate envoy, just what kind of terrifying cultivation does he have? Wu Yang and the others were all shocked and their faces changed. The creation realm was already the supreme existence in the ruins of fate. Although the boundless realm had always existed, it was destined to be impossible to see it in the ruins of fate. Yet now, the golden figure that walked out from the great silence lifespan tribulation was clearly far from something in existence at the creation realm could compare to, and it caused others to be unable to imagine exactly how formidable his cultivation was. More updates for you. Chapter 3148. In the previous eras, there were also heretics like you who thought that they had embarked on the path of defying the heavens. They didn't know how to respect others and didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. They always thought that their path could break and rewrite everything. But in our eyes, they were just ignorant and pitiful worms. There was a trace of coldness in the golden figure's indifferent eyes. If I want, I can overturn the sea, sink the earth, change the mountains and rivers, and turn the entire starry sky into scorched earth with a thought. And if you kneel down and surrender, you can also have the same power as me in the future. You can be fearless of the great silence fateless doom and surpass the eternal realm in the world. At the end of his words, there was a touch of pride and incomparable temptation in his voice. At this moment, if it were Gao Yanghuai and Jiang Tao who had been trapped in the ruins of creation for countless years, they might have been tempted long ago. After all, for them, the great silence fateless doom was like the shadow of death that could take away their lives at any time. Who didn't want to be completely free from it? But Lin Sun just sneered. What destined messenger? It seems that you are used to being a dog. Let me guess, did you also rely on kneeling down and surrendering in exchange for the qualification to be a dog? The golden figure was furious and his aura surged. Two divine lights shot out from his silver pupils, like two heavenly swords that tore the void apart. It seems that I guessed right, so you are so angry. Lin Sun laughed. He even suspected that the golden figure opposite him was originally an eternal realm existence in an era. The reason why he could become the destined messenger and serve the behind-the-scenes manipulator was that his knees were too weak, and he couldn't withstand the temptation of being a dog. You have a sharp tongue and don't know what's good for you. I can't let you live. The golden figure was completely enraged and suddenly stretched out his hand. Clang! A spear condensed by the light of catastrophe fell into his palm. Die! The golden figure waved the light of catastrophe spear and attacked Lin Sun. At that moment, it was like a sun that could destroy the world, moving horizontally, releasing unimaginable power. Oh no! Wu Yang and the others felt a stinging pain in their eyes, and their hearts trembled. This attack was too terrifying. It could easily kill the existence of the Creator Realm, and people like them who had transcended the Matrix realm suffered a terrible impact just looking at it from a distance. Clang! Billions of obscure light rain appeared out of thin air as the profound sword cauldron rose into the air and blocked the attack of the Calamity Light Spear. Lin Sun's figure shook violently, and he was almost shaken back. This caused his eyes to narrow, but instead of being shocked, he was delighted. When they truly fought, even though the other party's strength far surpassed a creation realm figure like Gao Yanghuai, it was not impossible to resist. Moreover, the spear condensed from the power of Great Silence Fateless Doom was far less taboo and terrifying than Lin Sun had imagined. At the very least, the profound sword cauldron, which was branded with the Nirvana laws, was enough to fight it head-on. Die! The golden figure attacked again. At this moment, its entire body was surging with calamity light. The golden radiance was blazing, and its terrifying might was endless. It stretched across the sky, and a calamity light spear swept out, shattering the nearby starry skies. It was ridiculously powerful. Wu Yang and the others were all shocked. He felt that under this attack, even if there were 10 of him, he would still be torn to pieces. Many people's hearts tightened. At this time, no matter how much confidence they had in Lin Sun, they could only hope that he would escape back to the Fortune Divine City at the first sign of trouble. But to everyone's surprise, clang! The golden figure's overbearing attack was once again blocked by Lin Sun. The terrifying collision between the two spread out, and the starry skies could no longer bear it. It collapsed into chaos, and scenes of destruction were everywhere. This, Wu Yang and the others were dizzy. Lin Sun's tyrannical strength had repeatedly broken their understanding. Just like at this moment, the golden figure's attack was so despairing, but it was still blocked by Lin Sun. Didn't this mean that even the self-proclaimed Destiny's emissary couldn't do anything to him? The golden figure realized that something was wrong, and his face sank. Die! He let out a loud roar. Layers of calamity light surged around his body, wildly released, and turned into a torrent of calamity light. Even his spear was burning with countless layers of calamity light. At the same time, chains appeared out of thin air, wrapping around the spear, and the aura it exuded became increasingly strange and ominous. It gave people the feeling that fighting against it was like fighting against the Great Silence Fateless Doom. Boom! The surrounding void cracked, and the calamity light spear shot out with a loud bang. At the same time, Lin Sun no longer hesitated and took the initiative to attack. The profound sword cauldron set off endless obscure light rain. Driven by Lin Sun, it collided with the calamity light spear. It had to be said that the calamity power of this spear was too strange and terrifying. It could penetrate the 9 serenities and crush the starry skies. The majestic calamity light surged on it. It slowly and firmly pressed towards Lin Sun inch by inch, making a fierce collision sound with the profound sword cauldron. Countless rules of light rain and torrents of destruction bloomed from the place where the two collided. Wu Yang and the others had no doubt that if they stepped forward, they would turn into ashes in an instant. Seeing that the golden figure obviously had the advantage, with a clang, a Taoist sword swept out of the profound sword cauldron and slashed out at an incredible speed. This sudden turn of events caused the golden figure to instinctively block the attack. With a bang, his figure was directly knocked back. But to Lin Sun's surprise, the terrible sword intent couldn't break the golden armor covering the other party. There was no doubt that this was a supreme treasure with an extremely amazing defensive power. You, an early-stage creator, can actually shake me? The golden figure seemed to be in disbelief, and also seemed to be angry. After letting out a loud shout, he waved the Calamity Light spear and attacked again. His aura became more and more terrifying, like the incarnation of the great silence fateless calamity. Calamity Light intertwined all over his body, and his power skyrocketed compared to before. Lin Sun, come back quickly. Wu Yang couldn't help but let out a hurried voice at this moment. The golden figure's power had reached an unimaginable level. If they fought with him head-on, it was very likely that they would be annihilated. The wisest choice was to retreat to the Fortune Divine City and fight with the power of the laws of the Fortune Divine City. But at this moment, Lin Sun let out a long laugh. There's no need to hide to deal with this dog. After that, the four great Tao bodies flew out together, each holding an eternal Tao weapon. Together with Lin Sun's original body, they charged towards the golden figure. His original body was already so powerful, let alone now that there were four great Tao avatars that were not weaker than his original body joining in. Then Lin Sun's figure shot out like 5 divine rainbows, straight into the 9 heavens, breaking through the endless calamity light, and his power spanned across the sky. Although the golden figure's power skyrocketed, when he was besieged like this, his figure suddenly stiffened, and his face sank again. He didn't seem to expect that Lin Sun's true combat strength would be so tyrannical. It was obviously beyond his expectations. Kill! But the golden figure had no intention of retreating. Instead, he became stronger and stronger. A calamity light spear pointed to the sky and the earth, releasing a supreme torrent of destruction. Rumble, rumble, the two fought fiercely, and in a flash, they had exchanged hundreds of blows. They fought until the universe was upside down and the void collapsed. Endless calamity light and Tao light were everywhere. The golden figure might be able to suppress Lin Sun's original body, but when the four great Tao bodies attacked together with Lin Sun's original body, they forcibly turned the situation around and fought the golden figure to a standstill. Bang! 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 A series of explosions rang out. The golden figure's calamity light spear was also extremely powerful. It was formed by a part of the power of great silence fateless calamity. The eternal Tao weapons controlled by Lin Sun's four great Tao bodies were directly shattered in the battle. But before the golden figure could be happy, another eternal Tao weapon appeared in the hands of each of the four figures. I'd like to see how many eternal Tao weapons you have in your hands that can be destroyed. The golden figure was furious. Lin Sun's difficulty was beyond his expectation, and it also made him feel a little embarrassed. As the destined messenger, it was the first time he had encountered such a tricky heretic. In the past eras, he didn't even need to do anything to those heretics he targeted. He could easily kill them with the power of great silence fateless calamity. But obviously Lin Sun was different from those heretics before. He had mastered the profound meaning of nirvana and had the foundation to fight against great silence fateless calamity. In addition, his cultivation was so strong that it was against the heavens, so he couldn't be taken down in a short time. This made the golden figure unable to bear it at all. Boom! The golden figure attacked angrily. The calamity clouds in the depths of the starry sky were tumbling violently. Guided by his power, they dropped strange and unpredictable calamity lights. At this moment, Lin Sun felt great pressure and danger, especially the eternal Tao weapons in the hands of the four great Tao bodies. They were almost shattered every moment. If he hadn't collected enough eternal Tao weapons over the years, he wouldn't have been able to hold on until now. Kill! The golden figure obviously intended to kill Lin Sun in one go. The power of the battle became stronger and stronger, and his silver eyes were burning with raging anger. Obviously, he had been completely enraged. I can't go on like this. Lin Sun took a deep breath and suddenly displayed the time blade. He turned into a light shadow and merged into the profound sword cauldron. Boom! But when the profound sword cauldron collided with the opponent's calamity light spear again, the scene Lin Sun expected did not appear. The power of great silence fateless calamity was completely unafraid of the erosion of the time blade. This was the first time Lin Sun had encountered such a situation. After that, he suddenly gritted his teeth and utilized the door of exile. Suddenly, a space-time crack appeared across the sky, and the 1,000-foot-long space-time portal covered the golden figure. "Open for me." The golden figure's eyes were cold. With a loud shout, the calamity light spear suddenly twisted forward. Boom! With the eruption of the calamity light, the door of exile with a range of thousands of feet suffered terrible destruction. In a few breaths it collapsed. This, Lin Sun's face finally changed. The door of exile, which had always been successful in the past, was broken at this moment. "Heretic, what other means do you have? Just use them." In the cold and indifferent voice, the golden figure moved again. He was so powerful that it made people desperate. Chapter 3149. The continuous use of the Blade of Time and the Gate of Exile consumed a lot of Lin Sun's cultivation. When the golden figure came with terrible power, Lin Sun was shaken by only one blow, and his whole body was smashed out. Puff! Lin Sun coughed up blood, his face pale. However, in the process, the 4 Taoist bodies restrained the golden figure, which gave Lin Sun a chance to breathe. Divine elixirs emerged one by one and were swallowed by Lin Sun. These divine elixirs were all rare treasures collected by the major clans. They were regarded as trophies and life-saving treasures for Lin Sun. But now, these divine elixirs came in handy. Boom! The divine light roared, and Lin Sun's consumed cultivation recovered rapidly at a speed visible to the naked eye. Without hesitation, he rushed at the golden figure again. Humph! The golden figure looked gloomy. He waved the spear of tribulation light, broke the siege of the 4 Taoist bodies, and stabbed at Lin Sun again. Incomparably powerful! How could he not know that it was futile to kill those doppelgangers? Only by destroying Lin Sun himself could he really kill Lin Sun. Boom! The battle became more and more fierce. Even if Lin Sun attacked with all his strength, he could only tie with the golden figure. The reason was that the combat strength of this golden figure had clearly exceeded the scope of the creation realm a long time ago, and the energy of the light of tribulation he possessed came from the grand silence, lifeless tribulation. It was extremely mysterious and ominous, and it could easily crush eternal Tao soldiers. It could be said that the real threat to Lin Sun in the battle was the power of the great silence, fatal disaster borrowed by the golden figure. Because of this, Lin Sun was constantly injured in the following battle. He coughed up blood repeatedly, and his face became extremely pale. Seeing this, Wu Yang and the others were extremely nervous and worried. The battle was too dangerous, just like a struggle between life and death. They were afraid that Lin Sun would encounter an accident in the next moment. However, to everyone's surprise, as time went by, Lin Sun actually withstood the heavy blows. When the eternal Tao soldiers were broken, he would sacrifice new ones. When he was injured by the golden figure, he would directly refine the divine elixirs to repair himself. From beginning to end, Lin Sun seemed to be extremely tenacious. This caused the golden figure to be both anxious and furious, and he was unable to maintain his composure. Ever since he became a Heaven's Mandate envoy, he had never encountered such a difficult opponent. Not only was his combat strength heaven-defying, but he also had countless life-saving trump cards. Kill! The golden figure roared angrily, and his aura shook the void around him. There were torrents of tribulation light everywhere, as if he was the master of heaven's punishment. This attack was once again resisted by Lin Sun. No one noticed that when Lin Sun blocked the blow, there was a glimmer of light in the depths of his eyes. As expected, the borrowed power is only borrowed in the end. It can't be maintained for long. Lin soon noticed that although the power of the golden figure was still as strong as before, the power of tribulation light it released was obviously weaker than before. This was the reason why Lin refused to retreat before. It was all for a protracted battle, to see who could outlast the other. Kill! The golden figure was obviously anxious. He seemed to have realized that if this continued, the situation would only get worse for him. Therefore, from this moment onwards, attacking was no different from risking his life. Boom! The tribulation light was vast and mighty, and the spear crushed the void. The desperate action of the golden figure caused a great impact on Lin soon. More and more injuries appeared on his body, which could hardly keep up with the speed of recovery. Looking from a distance, his clothes were stained with blood, and his body was covered with scars, which was shocking. But Lin Sun's eyes were getting brighter and brighter, and his fighting intent was getting stronger and stronger. Because the power of the great silence fatality borrowed by the golden figure was also being consumed rapidly. Kill! Lin Sun shouted, not giving in at all. Although he was injured, he still had a domineering momentum. After a while, Lin Sun suddenly shouted, "Sword!" Boom! At that moment, the world lost its color, the sun and the moon lost their light, and thousands of sword lights gathered together and converged into a dazzling sword light of 3 meters long. The sword light seemed to be transformed by a galaxy, in which there were countless stars and silver lights. Even if they were thousands of miles away, everyone could feel the brilliance and horror of the sword light. This was a sword condensed by the profound meaning of nirvana. Damn it! At the moment when the sword appeared, the golden figure's face changed greatly. He let out a roar and stabbed the spear of tribulation light in his hand. Bang! An amazing scene appeared. The sword light of 3 meters long chopped down in a domineering manner, crushing the spear of tribulation light inch by inch like a hot knife through butter. The golden silhouette wanted to dodge, but it was too late. The sword light shot out like a dragon, instantly traversing thousands of feet in the void. The sword tore open a straight sword mark on the golden silhouette's golden armor, and even his physical body was split in half from the top of his head. Just one sword. The golden figure who came out of the great silence fatality tribulation and claimed to be the messenger of destiny was split in half by one sword. This scene was so shocking that Wu Yang and others, who were so nervous about Lin Sun that their hearts were hanging in their throats, were stunned at once. What a terrible sword! But before they could be happy, boom, turbulence surged in the starry sky. The golden figure's soul actually managed to escape from the destructive sword strike. Bastard, do you really think you can exhaust my strength like this? Don't even think about it. The spirit of the golden figure roared as he suddenly stretched out his hand and grabbed. Bang! The tribulation cloud in the depths of the starry sky suddenly roiled and transformed into a mysterious vortex. At the same time, the outline of a Tao bell suffused within the chaotic chi surged into appearance from within the tribulation cloud vortex. At this instant, time and space seemed to have stopped. The starry sky that had collapsed a long time ago showed signs of being deathly still, and it seemed as if it was forcefully confined by a shapeless pressure. The might of this Tao bell was too terrifying. It was like the embodiment of a supreme taboo, and it hadn't even truly appeared in the world, yet the divine city of creation had already suffered an extremely great impact and started to shake violently. On the other hand, Wu Yang and the others who were within the city only had a single feeling. The sky is about to collapse. Everything will be destroyed by this Tao bell. It was a force that caused others to be unable to resist, and it made others feel as if they were sinking into despair. It was terrifying to an unimaginable extent. On the other hand, Lin Sun's expression changed abruptly at this moment while coldness couldn't be restrained surged into his heart. A strand of lethal aura of danger was like a sharp blade, and it caused his entire body to tense up. The primordial bell. That ominous treasure that even the eternal Night Divine Emperor had once suffered misfortune. Lin Sun had never imagined that he would encounter this treasure at this moment, and when he intended to dodge, the strength in his entire body actually seemed as if it had been restrained, causing him to be unable to move in the slightest. His expression instantly turned grim. Chaotic chi seethed within the tribulation cloud and descended into the world. The Tao bell suddenly pressed down, causing this expanse of the starry sky to instantly seem like a bubble and fall into violent spatial turbulence. The lofty and ancient divine city of creation trembled violently as if it was unable to endure this burden, and it seemed as if it would collapse and be destroyed at any moment. That scene seemed no different than the true destruction of the world. Not to mention Lin Sun, even a boundless realm existence would probably turn their hopes into ashes and fall into complete despair. But right at this moment, a jet-black light suddenly flashed out from the sky above the divine city of creation like a bolt of lightning, and it flashed through the obstruction of space at an inconceivable speed. It tore through the layer upon layer of chaotic chi and charged into the tribulation cloud vortex. Clang! The jet-black light struck fiercely onto the primordial bell like a bolt of lightning, and a terrifying force that completely exceeded the understanding of the world erupted from the collision. After that, the entire ruins of creation suddenly trembled, and the various epochs that were distributed throughout the ruins of creation suffered the impact. The heavens and the earth shook, and countless living beings within those epochs were alarmed by this and terrified to the point their souls almost left their bodies. In the starry sky, Lin Sun's vision went black as well. He was struck flying by the terrifying force created by the collision, and his body suffered a heavy injury and was extremely damaged. However, to Lin Sun's pleasant surprise, the energy of the primordial bell that confined him had vanished. When he looked up into the sky once more, Lin Sun saw an inconceivable scene. The primordial bell that possessed the might to obliterate the world was actually forcefully obstructed by that mysterious jet-black light, and it was unable to truly flash out from the tribulation cloud vortex. The two of them collided intensely, and even the terrifying fluctuations of energy that erupted from them were forcefully blocked within the tribulation cloud vortex, and merely a small portion of it had effused out. However, that small portion of the aura of destruction had crushed this expanse of space, and it shook the entire ruins of creation to the point of shaking violently. It's the river diagram. Lin Sun's heart trembled as he recognized the jet-black light that was like a bolt of lightning. It was the river diagram that had resided in the sky above Creation City for countless years, a precious treasure left behind by Chen Shi. Bang! Rumbling that seemed as if the heavens and the earth were collapsing resounded incessantly. It wasn't long before the primordial bell rumbled, and then it actually vanished from the depths of the tribulation cloud. No! This is impossible! How could my master's Tao treasure possibly be resisted? The golden figure that merely had his soul core left roared with shock and rage while his eyes almost split apart from rage, and he was unable to accept all of this. This was too inconceivable. As an emissary of the heavens, he was very clearly aware of how formidable the primordial bell was, and it was capable of annihilating a figure like him with ease. Yet now it had been obstructed. How could he accept all of this? Bang! Along with the disappearance of the primordial bell that was suffused with the aura of chaos, the tribulation cloud vortex that roiled violently without end actually rumbled and exploded into pieces at this moment. In an instant, the energy of the grand silence lifespan tribulation had completely dispersed from the collapsed and destroyed starry sky. At the same time, the river diagram transformed into a jet-black light that flashed lightly, and then it returned to the gray and hazy sky above Creation City before vanishing. At this instant, the golden figure seemed to have realized something, and he seemed as if he'd been struck by lightning. "No, don't abandon me, don't." Along with his voice resounding, the golden figure transformed into a ray of light that flashed desperately towards the depths of the starry sky. However, the gray and hazy tribulation cloud had dispersed a long time ago, and it caused the golden figure to completely lose the path to return. For a time, he seemed as if he'd been abandoned, and his entire body collapsed as he cried out in a hoarse voice, "Master, why did you abandon me?" Why, his voice revealed terror, helplessness, and unwillingness as it resounded in all directions. It seemed as if being unable to return along the same path was the cruelest punishment in the world for the golden figure. At this moment, Lin Sun's cold gaze was like a bolt of lightning as he charged explosively towards the golden figure. I'll continue to update tonight. Chapter 3150. Because of the impact he'd suffered earlier, Lin Sun's injuries were extremely severe. His body was damaged, and his entire body was drenched in blood. But compared to these injuries, capturing the golden figure's soul was undoubtedly more important. Swoosh! His figure teleported, and the abyssal sword cauldron soared through the sky. To Lin Sun's surprise, the golden figure's soul seemed to have completely given up, and it didn't have the slightest thought of resisting before it was directly suppressed by the abyssal sword cauldron. It was so easy that Lin Sun couldn't help but be stunned. There was no doubt that the disappearance of the tribulation cloud was a huge blow to the golden figure. Lin Sun couldn't be bothered to care about what the golden figure was thinking. He let out a long breath of air, looked around, and relaxed his entire body. It's finally over. Lin Sun sighed with emotion. At this moment, this vast expanse of the starry sky had collapsed a long time ago. There were signs of destruction everywhere, and it was a scene of desolation without a trace of vitality. Only the divine city of creation stood towering in the desolate void of destruction, and it seemed to be extremely striking and made others feel extremely at ease. Lin Sun's gaze subconsciously looked towards the sky above the divine city of creation. It was covered in a layer of obscure mist, and the river diagram resided within it. A very long time ago, the Supreme Existence Chen Shi had created this city by himself and left the river diagram to guard it. Firstly, it was to protect the source of creation, and secondly, it was to resist the threat of the fateless calamity. For example, Wu Yang and the others had been cultivating in the city all these years, and they'd never suffered a blow from the fateless calamity. Today, the river diagram had similarly played a vital role in the starry sky near the divine city of creation, and it repelled the strange and ominous primordial bell. It was equivalent to saving Lin Sun's life. Thank you. Lin Sun cupped his hands from afar. After that, he turned around and flashed towards the divine city of creation. Silent Night Ridge. Wu Yang and the others seemed as if they'd awoken from a dream when they saw Lin Sun's figure appear within their fields of vision. For a time, their hearts rose and fell, and they were all speechless. Today, Gao Yanghuai, Jiang Tao, and the others had led all the eternal figures of the various clans in the world to attack the city. Such a scene was sufficient to make anyone in the world despair. However, as soon as Lin Sun appeared here, he'd swept through over 100 existences at the Transcendence Realm by himself and annihilated 19 Creation Realm seniors. He'd revealed unparalleled and supreme elegance. But before they could rejoice, the great silence lifeless tribulation suddenly descended. No one could have thought that Lin Sun would choose to fight against this disaster. No one could have imagined that Lin Sun, who was heavily injured, could split open the body of the golden figure at the last moment. But this was not the end. Everyone felt despair when the primordial bell appeared from the tribulation cloud vortex, and their hearts were filled with indescribable bitterness and sense of loss. But a miracle happened. They didn't die, Lin Sun didn't die, and that despair-inducing primordial bell was also repelled. All of this gave Wu Yang and the rest an unprecedented shock and impact. When they saw Lin Sun appear at this moment, they even felt like they were dreaming. They were in a trance and couldn't calm down. As for Lin Fan and Su Bai, they were relatively calm, because when the golden figure appeared, all of their senses were obscured. Even they were protected by Wu Yang and the others, so they had no idea what was going on. As the saying goes, the ignorant are fearless. However, they had witnessed the scene of Lin Sun sweeping away a group of Eternal Realm experts. When they saw Lin Sun appearing in front of them, covered with wounds, how could they not understand that even the Great Silence lifeless retribution could do nothing to Lin Sun? "Father, how are you?" Lin Fan was both excited and worried and was the first to speak. Su Bai was also very nervous. Lin Sun's body was broken and dripping with blood, so they could not help but worry about him. "I'm fine." Lin Sun smiled. As the light fluctuated up and down his broken body and injuries healed. Of course, these were only superficial injuries. In this battle, Lin Sun also suffered internal injuries. Although they were not fatal, they were quite serious. Fortunately, Lin Sun had all kinds of healing medicines on him. To him, these injuries were nothing. "Hurry up and recuperate. Don't delay any longer. If there's anything, wait until you're healed," Wu Yang urged. The other old monsters nodded repeatedly. Lin Sun did not refuse and walked straight into the hall. When his figure disappeared, Wu Yang and the others looked at each other, and could not help but let out a long sigh. After what happened today, I'm afraid the ruins of creation will fall into turmoil. Xing Jia let out a sigh. Today, all the Eternal Realm experts jointly dispatched by the major clans in the world had died in front of the divine city of creation. If the news spread, one could imagine what kind of waves it would cause. They asked for it. They can't blame others. Dark Blood Underworld Emperor sneered. The High Sun clan and the Jiang clan chose to be the dogs of the mastermind behind the scenes. Their deaths are not to be regretted. The other clans were willing to be the dogs of the High Sun clan and the Jiang clan. Their deaths are also not to be regretted. If I were Lin Sun, I would definitely go to those clans and destroy them one by one. He was full of murderous intent. Today's situation was extremely dangerous. There was no doubt that if Lin Sun was in trouble, none of them would have a chance to survive. This was also the reason why Dark Blood Underworld Emperor was so angry. From now on, the ruins of creation can be described as a group of dragons without a leader. The situation of the world is also destined to change dramatically. However, who could have imagined that all of this was done by Lin Sun alone? Someone sighed. Hundreds of civilizations in the ruins of creation were strong and prosperous. But from today on, they were all trampled under Lin Sun's feet. If Lin Sun wanted to, he could even become the real supreme ruler of the ruins of creation. After all, even the Great Silence fatality disaster couldn't kill Lin Sun, not to mention those existences in the creation realm. I'm very curious about the identity of the destined messenger and what he knows about the mastermind behind the scenes, Wu Yang said softly. His words caused the eyes of the old monsters to flicker. They were existences in the transcending rules realm. The reason why they hadn't been attacked by the Great Silence fatality disaster was that they had been hiding in the ruins of creation to cultivate all these years. But they knew that unless they stayed here for the rest of their lives, they would have to be on guard against the Great Silence fatality disaster in the future. I believe Lin Sun himself is most eager to know this. Let's wait here for the news, Long Xiang said. At the same time, in the main hall, Lin Sun sat cross-legged and swallowed the divine medicine to heal his injuries. At the same time, he looked at the spirit of the golden figure imprisoned in the abyssal sword cauldron with his divine sense. The figure had a pair of silver eyes and looked like a young man. But the aura around him was quite ancient. At this moment, his spirit was silent as if he was mourning the death of his parents. It was also at this moment that Lin Sun acutely noticed that the aura of calamity on the spirit of the golden figure had long dissipated, revealing the aura of the cultivation that the figure originally possessed. Although the aura was extremely weak, Lin Sun could still recognize at a glance that the cultivation that the figure possessed had long been beyond the scope of the creation realm. It had already exceeded the scope of the creation realm. In other words, the golden figure was originally a boundless realm existence. No wonder I was not a match for him even with the strength of my original body. Even if I used the 4 Tao forms, I could only barely contend with him. It turns out that he's a boundless realm existence. At this moment, Lin Sun finally understood. Creation realm existences like Gao Yanghuai and Jiang Tao had all reached the great perfection of this realm, but they were still far from being a match for him. And obviously, the reason why the golden figure was so powerful was not only because he could borrow the power of the Great Silence Fatality disaster, but also because he had the cultivation of the boundless realm. This was the key. As if sensing the investigation of Lin Sun's divine sense, the spirit of the golden figure trembled slightly, and then said in an indifferent voice, "I know what you want to do by keeping my spirit, but I have to tell you that even if you search my soul, it's impossible to know anything about the Lord. In other words, as long as you search my soul, the imprint left in my soul memory by the Lord will be alarmed, and my spirit will be wiped out in an instant." When he said the word Lord, he seemed extremely upset and lost. Obviously, he was still brooding over the fact that he couldn't leave the path of the tribulation cloud. "Then what can you tell me?" Lin Sun conveyed a wisp of thought through his divine sense. After a long silence, the spirit of the golden figure said, "I can tell you everything related to me." "I'm not interested in you," Lin Sun said coldly. "Haha, don't you want to know how I became the messenger of destiny?" The expression of the golden figure was very strange. It seemed to be sad, bitter, and thinking about something, which was very mysterious. This time, without waiting for Lin Sun to speak, his eyes were full of reminiscence, and he continued, "I'm Ing Shanying, a descendant of the Ing Shan clan of the Chaos Spirit clan of the Tao era. I was talented when I was young, and my talent was outstanding in the whole clan. At the age of 13, I was selected as an exception and entered the first orthodoxy of the Tao era, the Three Pristines Temple. In less than 100 years, I set foot on the Tao Master Realm, which is equivalent to the immortal path of your era." At this moment, the golden figure who called himself Ing Shanying was completely immersed in reminiscence, murmuring in a low voice. "At that time, I was high-spirited and confident that my Tao was enough to shock the ages and suppress all my peers. Later, I fought in the heavens alone for 800 years, and there was no opponent in the Tao Master Realm. The world called me Tao Master Ing Shan, and billions of creatures praised my name. Even people in the same realm had to lower their heads and call me Tao Master when they saw me." A wisp of indescribable emotion and satisfaction appeared on his face, and there was a wisp of pride that couldn't be restrained. 3,000 years later, I experienced the apocalypse tribulation and attained eternal Tao, and in less than 600 years, I became one of the 4 strongest rulers of the Tao era. At that time, everyone called me Ruler Ing Shan, but I didn't care about these empty titles at all. What I sought was to overturn the past and the present, and I've always yearned for the day when I could truly transcend the change of an era. When the calamity of an era descended, I resolutely headed to the Kunlun ruins and fought in the Sea of Destiny. I slaughtered a path of blood through the resistance of numerous eternal realm figures, and in the end, I won a chance to head to the ruins of myriad profundity of Tao. When he spoke up to hear, Ing Shanying's expression was suffused with a layer of light. It was an aura of disdain, confidence, and disdain for the world. It was also at this moment that Lin Sun, who had been silent all this while, was shocked. This fellow actually went to the ruins of myriad profundity of Tao? More updates for you.